Good afternoon, all of you. And good afternoon, everyone joining me online. Amit, Parmeet, Shubhi, and Jasleen. All right. I've been going through your messages. Unfortunately, I was just badly occupied in something that I had not foreseen earlier. Uh, there was someone who was very unwell in the family, and unfortunately, his children live abroad. So for 2 days, I was just nursing the person. So that's why I couldn't see you yesterday. Now things are under control, so I'm back again. I was worried that whether I'll be able to take today's session or not, but I tried my best, and thankfully it worked. Now, another thing, we have been asked by the government to not have sessions on 8th, 9th, and 10th. Now, 9th and 10th is not a problem, it's Saturday, Sunday, anyways. 8th happens to be Friday. So, what I have done is, and I didn't want to stump you this Saturday because you may have your own plans for Saturday. So, what I thought that what we can do is in the coming week, 10th to 17th, 16th Saturday, we will have a working day. ऑल राइट 8th का दिन हमारा लूज हो जाएगा क्योंकि सरकार हमें इंस्टीट्यूट खोलने नहीं देंगे तो 16 तारीख को यूज कर लेंगे फिर सो यू विल हैव एंड यू आर ऑफ नेक्स्ट वीक 8th 9th एंड 10th but to compensate for the 8th wala part we will have a class on 16th of September. So 16th September we will have the class. Please don't plan anything beyond that. All right, but anyways, let's see. So and yesterday last class when we met we had been talking about land reforms. And the last we talked about was land ceiling. And we discussed about the 5 questions and 5 answers to that on land ceiling. All right. Now, when we talk further on land ceiling itself, one question is to what extent did it succeed and where did it fail? All right, or to what extent did it do well, to what extent did it do badly? So when we check across, see the success of land ceiling was very limited. If we look at the benefits or success, one was that it made a rule against very large land holding which resulted in giving legal support to the government for confiscating land. So that was one. It made a rule against very large land holding, which resulted in giving legal support to the government for confiscating land. That before this Land Ceiling Act, there was no rule also there. Nobody could confiscate land. Government could not take away land of the big landlords as there was no rule. There was no legal system. With this land holding system, land ceiling system, at least there was now a rule that if you knew you could confiscate a land. All right. And the second was it provisioned for redistribution of land for increasing rural equity, provisioned for redistribution of land for increasing rural equity. So that was the second thing, that was the success of Land Ceiling Act to some extent. But mind you, again, most of the success of Land Ceiling Act was on paper rather than practice. In practice, the ceiling was imposed not even on 5% of the land area, and not much land could be confiscated. All right, that was the challenge. In fact, in your notes, if you have written, there was a clause called voluntary surrender clause. Now see, this voluntary surrender clause was initially made for landlords to surrender their land on their own so that they don't have to, that nobody has to report it to the government. It was done the other way around. Now when the peasants got the land or the small landholders got the land, the landlord would use the voluntary surrender clause to take or snatch away the land from them. You understand that? कि वॉलंटरी सरेंडर क्लॉज बनाया इसलिए गया था कि जो बड़े किसान हैं, जो बड़े लैंडलॉर्ड हैं, वो अपनी जमीन वॉलंटरली छोटे किसानों को दे दें, सरकार के इंटरफेरेंस की नौबत ना आए. बड़े किसानों ने इसका उल्टा इस्तेमाल किया. जब जमीन उनसे लेकर छोटे किसानों को दे दी जाती थी तो ये उनके पास पहुंच जाते थे और उनको डरा धमकाकर बोलते थे कि वॉलंटरी सरेंडर कर दो, ये जमीन मेरे नाम पर. So the voluntary surrender clause was misused tremendously in 1960s because the rich landlords tried using it to get the land in their favor. Now, in 1970, the government made a rule that if you are doing voluntary surrender, it can be done only to the government. All right, that if you are doing voluntary surrender, then it can be done only to the government. All right. Again, it was thought that this rule will make sure that landlords don't exploit the peasants. But again, what used to happen was that there would be a nexus between the landlords and the administration. So the peasants would voluntarily surrender their land to the government, and then government would sell it at the less than market rate or at government rate back to the landlords. It would happen in an indirect manner. Peasant would surrender it to the government sometimes, saying that I don't have wherewithal. Again, peasant would surrender it not from their free will. They would be forced to do that. But this time they will not surrender it to the landlord, they will give it to the government, and government would then sell this land to the landlord under one pretext or the other. It could be about developing a poultry farm, it could be about developing a cattle shed, कुछ और बहाने के basis पे बेच दिया जाता था. So what the moral of the story is that even though the rules under land ceiling were expected to be tough, they were expected to redistribute, yet their actual application on the ground remained very weak. All right, that is the basic idea. So I'm taking you into that. You change the paragraph and you write, Land Ceiling Act, Land Ceiling Act was introduced to improve efficiency of distribution but only 2% of net sown area reported itself under ceiling because, and then I'm giving you ABC point as showing how ceiling didn't succeed. So you write A, lack of proper land records led to Benami transactions. Lack of proper land records led to Benami transactions. Second, lack of proper land records. If you recall, last class I was explaining to you that land record was not complete and clear because ownership of land was not very clearly stated in regions where Britishers had given permanent settlement. That is where zamindari would be there, and land was distributed from one generation to another, but the record was not kept very clearly. All right, that was the challenge. Second, you write, misuse of voluntary surrender clause, misuse of voluntary surrender clause, third, lack of political will, lack of political will and administrative support and fourth, diversion of records, diversion of records which showed many areas as plantation, or under commercial cultivation, by fudging the records, F-U-D-G-I-N-G, fudging the records. Fudging is falsely showing the record, all right? Fudging मतलब धोखाधड़ी, झूठ दिखा दिए. तो ये एक और चैलेंज आ रहा था about land system in India, where people were fudging records, they were not showing the correct things, and all that was creating failure of Land Sealing Act. So effectively, if somebody asks us to assess the Land Sealing Act, it was a gross failure. We didn't succeed much in achieving it, which played a big role in rural India remaining unequal even in the latter phase. Because land was one of the bigger assets in rural India, and that asset remained majorly in control of few landlords. So rural India remained unequal even in the latter phase. Okay, now you give a heading, you write land consolidation. I'm explaining the consolidation of land per se to you, even though in your notes I have given you the things. Land consolidation was a complete failure. All right, land consolidation just didn't succeed in India at all. In many areas, it was also called Chakbandi, but that was land consolidation. Good afternoon, all of you who joined me now. Okay, I have a question, and I'm sure many of you would have seen it, that the inflation video that I shared with you, of course, I'll teach you inflation in the classroom also, but I just thought I'll share that video because it was not at optional level, it was at GS level. In optional, I'll do more things. But it was at GS level, but I still thought if you could see that video, you will have an idea. That video was mainly for this year's mains exam, but you will have an idea of how to approach the topic of inflation, that what all things have to be covered. Data points have to be remembered. So as I told you, if you just keep making a table where the data is present, you will be able to then significantly answer things. As far as your data set or your requirements are concerned, I will keep you updated with whatever happens this year and year after that. And that is what will teach you. Like, you don't need to remember the exact numbers. You can even remember the trends, and that will do for you. But on topics like inflation, keep yourself very conscious, because it is something I expect to appear in your exam. I expect less in this year's exam. This year's GS, they can ask it. Optional, I have less expectation. Your exam, I think you will have a possibility. All right. Before I go ahead, I'll just take 1 second, Rohit. Before I go ahead, I have again 2 things to explain to you. One, when I say Benami transactions, recall from last classes, these are transactions where the real owner's name will not be reflected. Either there will be a fictitious owner, or there will be an owner who will be a close relative. You understand that? कि मैं अपने ज़मीन अपने किसी रिलेटिव के नाम पे ले लूँ, अपने किसी काम करने वाले के नाम पर ले लूँ और दिखाऊं कि ये उनकी ज़मीन है, but actually वो ज़मीन मेरे कंट्रोल में होगी. Otherwise, I can take the land in fictitious name, किसी और के नाम पे रख लें, वो आदमी exist ही नहीं करते, but I am taking the land in their name, and on paper it belongs to somebody who actually doesn't exist. So that is why Benami transactions. Another is I used the term net sown area. Net sown area means that total area under cultivation which has irrigation facility. That is the net sown area. If you recall, gross cultivated area, net cultivated area. So similarly, net sown area is total area under irrigation, under cultivation with irrigation facility. So whenever you see this term, net sown area, this is total area under cultivation with irrigation facility. That is what I meant when I said not only not even 5% of net sown area could be brought under it. All right. Yes, yes. So that is where the state governments kept the loophole going. They never said that it will apply above 10 acre, it will apply above 15 acre, because that should have been ideally the cause. They didn't do that. In fact, some people actually misuse voluntary surrender in one more way. I've given it to you in your write-up, so I didn't make you write it. One more way was that they would voluntarily surrender their poor quality land. If I have a waste land, I will go and voluntarily surrender it. Show it to you that, look, I am such a good person, I am giving up my land. All right. And I will actually be giving you my waste land. And in turn, I will show myself as someone so good that you won't suspect me and you won't try checking as to what are my other land holdings. So even waste quality land would be surrendered voluntarily very often by the big landlord. All right. And that was done to mainly establish their position in the people among government and make sure that they are taken as good people rather than people who want to evade. Now, when we talk about, so next thing I take you into is what is called land consolidation. Land consolidation. Now see, when we talk about land consolidation, it is like this. Suppose, I told you this in the first class also, I hope you would recall. Suppose there is a person A who owns 1 acre land here, 1 acre here, 1 acre here, and 1 acre here. Alright, suppose this is a person who owns land like this. And suppose there is another person B who owns the land here, another person C who owns the land here. And now, so the government says that let B take this land, C take this land, and let this land belong to A. B और C A का इधर वाला लैंड ले ले और B और C का लैंड A को मिल जाए, तो सरकार ये कहते थे, the government would claim that doing this will allow us to remove the boundaries, and that will mean a lot of land area wasted will go away. It will also mean a big land area to be cultivated upon, which will mean mechanization like using a tractor, using a thresher, etc. can be done. And it also meant that economies of scale could be practiced in agriculture. There is advantage of large scale production. And the theoretical thinking was that B and C lose nothing, because if we take away 1 acre land from them here, we are compensating them anyways with the land elsewhere. All right. That is why it was called consolidation of land holding, that the fragmented nature of the land, the dispersed nature of the land can be removed if we could consolidate the land. This was a total flop. Not even 2% people agreed to this. Why? Typical reasons. One, fertility will be different across different lands. So it's possible these two land areas might be more fertile and these two land areas might be less fertile. And if you want people to exchange, people won't be willing so easily. That becomes your challenge one. Challenge two, it is also possible people can have their sentimental attachment to the land. They don't want to leave the land as they believe my ancestors had, cultivated it. Challenge three, land record. You may take land from B, assuming it was B's. Maybe a D can come in and say it was actually my land which B was cultivating. You understand that? And then you go do a court case, keep running a pillar to post, and then everybody is in trouble. All right. And another challenge was, again, that the small farmers thought that it is tilted in the favor of big farmer, as it had a rule called major area rule. अब ये मेजर एरिया रूल क्या था? मेजर एरिया रूल was that if suppose A has 2 acres of land out of say 4 acres, then other 2 acres will automatically be given to A. If I am a big landholder, suppose this is a piece of land, and if I hold this piece and I hold say this piece, and some 100 people hold the rest of it, then major area rule was that since A owns this land and A owns this land, so major area is owned by A, so automatically all these B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I and so on will have to be displaced, and A will be given the accessibility to this land, and they can take their land elsewhere in the village. You understand that? That was the major area rule. The one who will have major area under cultivation will automatically get the land distribution in their favor. So many small farmers said that this is a ploy to take away our land and distribute it to the richer one and give us with whatever is left over. You understand that? So this becomes a problem, that land consolidation doesn't succeed in India at all. All right, this was one of the gross failures. I can't make you write even a single point on success of land consolidation. So in case they ask you a question on success, you can write zamindari abolition, and you can write on tenancy, you can write on sealing at least a couple of points, but on abolition there can be nothing. Just didn't happen. We were not prepared at all. All right. So it is still the rule, it still goes on, but still people resist it. So this is a challenge that we have. What was the idea of consolidation? Why did the government plan it? The government thought if we do it, then we will consolidate the land holding and make Indian agriculture more productive. In fact, to be fair to them, जो उन दिनों के सरकार थी, उनके साथ अगर हम fairly उनकी बात करें, तो उन्होंने 2 चीजें शुरू की थी एक साथ. आप सुनते रहिएगा ध्यान से, मैंने आपको राइट अप दे रखा है, और अगर आपने पढ़ लिया होगा तो मेरी बात आपको सुनी हुई लगेंगी. If you have read the pages I had asked you to last time, you would feel that, okay, what he's saying is what I have read already. So, the government on one hand started land consolidation. Majorly thinking about small farmers, the government also started talking about cooperative building. That the government passed a cooperative act and said that small farmers are expected to come together as a cooperative. So the small farmers can contribute their land together, and maybe say 1 acre, half an acre, 1.5 acre, 2 acres, and there can be a 50-acre land consolidated, where the small farmers don't lose ownership of their land, but the land will now go to the cooperative. All right, and the cooperative will have again the features of economies of scale. The cooperative farmers will have more bargaining power. The cooperative farmers will be protected under the Cooperative Act, so that whatever produce they do, whatever production they do, will be purchased by the government. So the idea was to support the small farmers this way and support the big farmers by consolidation. All right. But again, the caste-based differences were huge in the village. Religion-based differences were huge. Type, quality of land differences were huge. Suppose you pool 1 acre land, I pool 1 acre land, but my land is less productive, yours is more. But the cooperative distributes equally between me and you. Obviously, you will be dissatisfied. You understand that? So all these things started happening. Also, most of the farmers were not well educated. They could not distinguish between a cooperative and somebody large landholder taking away their land. Now, if this cooperative even had a person who had 10-acre land, or this cooperative even had a person who would be from so-called upper caste, suddenly these people would be richer, these people would be better educated, and therefore they will start commanding those who had either lesser land or who would belong to less educated class or maybe a lower caste in the village, and these people again felt disenfranchised. कि भाई मेरे पास जमीन कम है, मेरे पास लैंड कम, मेरे पास वेल्थ कम है, मेरी पढ़ाई लिखाई कम है, मेरा कास्ट थोड़ा कम है, इसके लिए ये लोग मुझे डोमिनेट कर रहे हैं. They're dominating me. Nobody wanted to join such a cooperative. A cooperative ideally means everybody is equal, everybody is doing cultivation together, and then whatever we cultivate, we distribute among them. Now again, India was inspired by Chinese cooperatives, by Soviet cooperatives. What we were not realizing, I'll take a minute, let me finish it and you can ask me. What we were not realizing is that again, Chinese or the Soviets were a dictatorial model where nobody had ownership on the land. Everybody had surrendered their land to the government. The government would make them cultivate on that land and then take back. the produce and then distribute that produce among people based on their capacities, etc., as determined by the government. So the government was absolute. In India, if you recall the rural areas of those days, government was leave alone absolute, in many cases absent. सरकार थे ही नहीं. आप आज भी अपने गांव जाइए, आपको सरकार के नाम पे बहुत से बहुत एक पोस्ट ऑफिस दिख जाएगा. या अगर आपका गांव थोड़ा ज्यादा डेवलप्ड है या बड़ा है तो पुलिस की एक चौकी दिख जाएगी, वो भी तभी जब डेवलप्ड है या बड़ा है. नहीं तो एक पुलिस की चौकी नहीं दिखती, एक ब्लॉक डेवलपमेंट ऑफिस नहीं दिखता, पंचायत के ऑफिस बंद ही पड़ा रहता है ज्यादातर. तो सरकार नहीं दिखती है हमें गांव में. सरकार के ये परिचायक होते हैं. These are all symbols of government. If these things are missing, then for a village person, say if I am there, there is nothing called a government. And now you are telling me that your land and his land and her land, everything will be taken together and you will make a cooperative and you will have equal rights in the cooperative. It doesn't rub me in here well. I feel this is a ploy. You guys will take my land and you will then disenfranchise me, you will remove me from the system and I will have nothing much to do. This became a challenge again. And again, think of it from the point of view of a person who had been exploited in the past and point of view of the person who would be less educated or sometimes completely uneducated. So there was no question that they would be willing to understand this. All right. देखो, मतलब educated लोग भी ये मान लेते हैं ना कि एक इंसान अपने हाथ से हैंड पंप उखाड़ लेंगे. तो जो लेस एजुकेटेड है वो तो कुछ भी मान सकते हैं. मैं आपको बस इस बात का कन्विक्शन दे रहा था कि जब आप लेस एजुकेटेड या अनएजुकेटेड इमेजिन करो तो आप 50s का इंडिया इमेजिन करो वेयर द लिटरेसी रेट वाज नॉट इवन टचिंग 20%. So in that kind of a situation, and the rural illiteracy was even high, and then the prejudices would be high. Caste-based prejudices would be high. So consolidation became a trouble. Land reform in general became a trouble, and cooperatives became a trouble there. So cooperative movement did not succeed in India, except for certain places like milk cooperatives in Gujarat. There were more exceptions than rule. All right. The milk cooperatives in Gujarat succeeded because there was a proper even-handedness. Farmers were explained the method. Plus, remember, farmers in Gujarat were not as fragmented landholders as elsewhere. They were comparatively better informed and better educated. More importantly, comparatively richer. Also, it took a lot of leadership from people like Verghese Kurian, who tried making sure that everybody is informed, government mechanism is involved, to make sure that farmers are convinced first, and then only the cooperative movement begins. All right, so all that is also important, but except for milk cooperatives, the land-based cooperatives have not succeeded much in India. Even today, forget in the past. अभी भी आप सोचिए 70-75 साल बाद, मुझे कभी-कभी लगता भी है कि हमारे अभी के सरकार बहुत इंस्पायर्ड हैं शुरुआत के कांग्रेस के सरकार वगैरह से, क्योंकि अब बात हो रही है सहकार से समृद्धि, prosperity through cooperation, or developing cooperatives. So सहकार से समृद्धि वही चीज है फिर, that we will do cooperatives, develop them, and everybody will become prosperous using the economies of scale, negotiating skills will be higher, and so on. But again, remember, if we want to develop cooperatives, we will have to have well-defined property rights. We will need to make sure that farmers are treated equally no matter which background they come from. We will have to make sure that rule of law prevails, and farmers are convinced that it will prevail. You understand that? So all that is all important. It has to be understood in that manner. Unless you don't understand it, your past experiences will keep driving you on the other side of the spectrum. So keep it like that. I will be discussing a little bit more from cooperatives with you per se, but right now I just wanted you to understand that two things were happening simultaneously, consolidation and cooperatives, and both did not succeed because the major factor, that is the farmers, were not kept in confidence. All right? Yes, yes. Perfect, perfect. I am coming to the cooperative there. Land Ceiling Act was 1954. No, A did not get extra land, Divyanshi. A would get all the lands and other farmers will get lands apart from that. Punjab and Haryana had completed the task of consolidation in a sense, Amit, that whatever land was needed could be consolidated. But that land area was not even 2% of total land area, even in Punjab and Haryana. All right. Yes, land consolidation can increase productivity. Land consolidation can also increase modernization of land. Important thing is, could we do it? And if not, why we could not do it? In your booklet, if you could come to cooperative farming. Yes, yes. जरूर तुम किसी को भी बाहर जाके बोल दो, वो तुम्हारी हेल्प कर देंगे. ठीक है. All right. Now see, if you could come to page number 20, and on page number 20 you have a heading, Arguments in favor of cooperative farming. Now these are arguments that I already told you, but I just want you to put some numbers on it. The strongest argument is basic rationale is that it is an effective method of solving the problems created by small uneconomic holdings by pooling them together. तो आपको क्या करना चाहिए जब ये चीजें पढ़ते हो, अपने पॉइंट्स को कंसोलिडेट कर लो कहीं साइड में लिखकर. ऑलराइट, सो आप लिख सकते हो 1 pooled the small land holdings and consolidated them. Alright, you can just write it as 1 pooled the small land holdings, pooled the small land holdings. You could find someone, कोई मिल गए थे, he'll do it. Pooled the small land holdings by consolidating them. Second, benefits of reducing cost of input, benefits of reducing cost of input through bulk purchase. Benefits of reducing cost of input through bulk purchase. Third, possibility of renting capital equipments like tractor. Possibility of renting capital equipments. Renting. See, small farmers may not be able to buy a tractor, buy a harvester or a thresher, but if 100 people are together, they can together pool to rent for it. Alright, so that develops a renting market. Fourth, sharing of labor can be practiced. Sharing of labor can be practiced along with other resources like cattle. Sharing of labor can be practiced along with other resources like cattle. So, you know, if you have made a cooperative, there are 50 farmers and they have, say, 20 bullocks. These bullocks can be used for plowing. Even if others don't have it, they can get the part of that share. Somebody can contribute their labor. That is the cooperative aspect. And then you write another one. Better negotiation power. Better negotiation power for selling their product and marketing them and then one more you write has higher potential of developing social cooperation which adds to productivity. Higher potential of developing social cooperation or coordination which adds to productivity. It's like if people work together and if they can grow together, then they trust each other better. If they trust each other better, they can contribute better to production capacities. So that is the pros of cooperative. I already told you the cons or the challenges of cooperatives. Major challenge was lack of trust. All right, the trust that farmers needed to have in cooperative building. All right, and another major challenge was lack of any demonstration effect to show a successful cooperative system. You need to do that. All right, so lack of trust And so you can write that challenges. This is challenges of cooperative farming. And you write 1, lack of trust among members. Lack of trust among members. 2, lack of managerial skill. Lack of managerial skill for effective production. 3, incidences of corruption. Incidences of corruption and misuse of cooperatives. Incidences of corruption and misuse of cooperatives by large farmers. Etc. Now these three are the major factors actually that led to challenges of cooperatives. You read through, and if you have read through, you will realize I've given you nothing new. I just consolidated them in point form. Whatever I've given it to you in the notes, I consolidated it to you in the point form. All right? Yes, yes. But farmers were also the members in cooperative. Amul was not procuring from farmers otherwise. Farmers were also the members in cooperatives. That is the problem, you know, and when I'll teach you Operation Green, I'll highlight it. The problem is that unlike milk, production of commodities is not homogeneous. So you can grow a tomato and I can grow a tomato, but both of us can grow very different types of tomato. And that may result in returns varying. So for commodities, it's always a challenge. That how do you consolidate, how do you bring farmers together? So that was what was felt, if you ask me. Again, it's a homogeneous crop. The types don't differ. Again, vending is different from growing. If I am a vendor, I can still cooperate. I know the market, I am used to it. If I am a farmer, I am already not much used to it. You understand that? Plus, I am growing one type of a thing. And I may not be willing to grow something else for somebody else's sake. And then take yourself back 60 years and imagine the rural situation then. And that explains where the problem started coming in. No, they were actually felt. All these challenges have happened in India. It was, yes, they were felt, they happened. The big landlords misusing the cooperatives, trust missing among farmers. You know, again, the land clarity was not there, who owns which land. So again, that resulted in a lot of disputes as to whether I will join the cooperative or not. Now the elder brother may want to join the cooperative, the younger brother may not. And that created tussle again in India. So it was not that easy in Indian context. All right. And again, I repeat, add to that a very important factor, under education. Understand that. Okay, think, what is the biggest challenge of making people do things which are new in nature? Conviction. You need to convince them that it's for their betterment. Please understand that. अब मैं आपको एक सिंपल एग्जाम्पल दे रहा हूं. हमें 9th, 10th, 8th, 7th ऐसे स्कूल डेज में पढ़ा है कि एसएसटी तो रटने की बात है, इंग्लिश में जो मर्जी लिख दो, ठीक है, ये हमें सिखा दिया ऐसे that English whatever you write it's all okay, SST it's all about mugging up. We grow up thinking like that. Now think, everybody is very happy doing a paper 2 economics, because especially I'm talking about the examination, I'm not talking about studying it. So during the examination, I've never seen anybody having any butterflies in stomach before paper 2 economics. But I see many people having butterflies in stomach before a micro or a macro. You know why? Because in paper 2 economics, when we don't know, we don't even get to know that we don't know. We write something and come along. तो एक साइकोलॉजिकल इज्जत बची हुई दिखती है हमें. वो फैसाइल है, नंबर फिर भी 90 ही आते हैं 250 में. क्योंकि आता थोड़ी था वो तो हमें लग रहा था हमें आता है. हम पढ़ गए, हमने पढ़ रखा है, हमने ये चीज जान ली, एनालिसिस की जरूरत नहीं है, मैं रट के लिख दूंगा, मैं सर वाले पॉइंट्स बता दूंगा, सर जो एक्स्ट्रा बोले वो तो जाने दो, कोई बात नहीं है, मैं इतना ही लिख दूं यही बहुत है. क्योंकि ना तुमने सवाल देखे यूपीएससी के आज तक, वो तो मैंने देखे हैं. तो तुम्हें लगा नहीं पढ़े तो भी काम चल सकता है. ऐसा नहीं कह रहा हूं तुम्हें लग रहा है, लेकिन एक बात कह रहा हूं, ऐसा लगता है हमें कभी कभी. ये हमारी ट्रेनिंग है वर्षों की. Since years we have been trained that if something is descriptive, then it's easy. I can write anything and I can get away with it. It's corroborated further by your college level teaching and marking. That we come along in the college, we write 7 pages, 8 pages, without even realizing what we are writing about. तुम मुझे कोई बात पूछो, जैसे analyze green revolution in the context of development of other revolutions in India. ये सवाल मैंने एक बार डी स्कूल में पूछा था, मैं वहां पढ़ाता था. बहुत पुराने जमाने की बात हो गई, आप में से कुछ लोगों का जन्म हो रहा होगा उस वक्त. So I used to teach there, and this is a question I asked in economic development and planning in India course, that analyze the impact of green revolution on other revolutions in India. Majority of the people were telling me the benefits of green revolution. This was not my question. My question was, how did green revolution impact other revolutions in India? But everybody told me the benefits of green revolution. I also remember marking people 0 on 10 at times. 0 on 15 मार्क्स का शायद मैंने पूछा था, या 20 का 0 भी दिया मैंने बहुत लोगों को, क्योंकि उन्होंने ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन की पूरी बात लिख दी मुझे. उसमें यह भी लिख दिया कि बेनिफिट्स क्या है ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन के, और यही लिखना भूल गए कि येलो रिवॉल्यूशन उसके बाद हुआ या व्हाइट रिवॉल्यूशन हुआ. ये नहीं बताए, सारी कहानी लिख दी, तो 0 ही मिलेगा. लेकिन लिखते हुए कभी लगेगा कि मुझे 0 मिलने वाला है? तो मन बिल्कुल परेशान नहीं हुआ, अपना लिखे गया जो मर्जी. अब अगर मैं आपका कॉलेज लेवल की चेकिंग की बात करूं, विद ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट, किसी को मैं डिसरिस्पेक्ट नहीं कर रहा, पर जो मैंने होते देखा है, तुम ये लिख के आ जाओगे ना, आपके प्रोफेसर भी आपको ऐसे से देख के, अच्छा चलो इनको 15 में 3 दे देते हैं, 4 दे देते हैं, जो बहुत अच्छा लिख देंगे उनको 7 दे देंगे. आपका नेट लॉस सिर्फ 3 नंबर का हुआ, क्योंकि उसमें 4 लोगों ने लिखा था अच्छा, उनको मैंने 11 भी दिया 15 में. Because economics, even description, is all objective. It's nothing subjective about it. You can't think, and your thoughts cannot decide the reality. It has to be objectively defined. That what am I asking, and what should be your answer? And then you get marked 70%. Even this year, people got 148. I differ grotesquely with people who say that only mentioning economist's name is important. Akriti's paper you see, our test paper she has uploaded everywhere on her Telegram channel, on her blogs, everywhere. She was our student and she wrote the test series also here. तो आप उनके पेपर देखिएगा, उनके 148 है और वो एक भी इकोनॉमिस्ट का नाम नहीं लिखते, और पेपर 2 में 148 है उनके. Same thing about Himanshu. He got 4th rank. My student again, around 4 years back, he would write not a single name of the economist and had 151 in paper 2. Important is not about whether you write the name of the economist alone. If you write the name of the economist, you are embellishing your answer. I fully agree. ये fashionable बना दिया गया 2-3 लोगों के बोलने की वजह से. तो लगा नहीं, नेम ऑफ द इकोनॉमिस्ट बहुत जरूरी है, और नेम ऑफ द इकोनॉमिस्ट लेके गलत बात लिख दिए तो कहां से नंबर मिलेंगे? एनालिसिस गलत कर दिए तो जबरदस्ती ठूसा किसी इकोनॉमिस्ट का नाम, तो कि नहीं मैंने तो ये 8-10 नाम याद कर रखे हैं और इनके ये कोट्स याद कर रखे हैं, कुछ ना कुछ करके तो ठूसूंगा ही अपने आंसर में. कुछ लोग वो हरकत करते हैं. Nothing. I have remembered these 8-10 quotes by these 8-10 people. Whatever you ask me in paper 2, I'll somehow bring them into picture. So somebody writing about Professor Amartya Sen in topics which are not even closely connected to his research, you will still not get marks. So we got to be careful about the processes. कुछ पढ़ लिया, किसी ने कुछ बोल दिया, हमने बस पकड़ ली उस बात को, इतना ही होना चाहिए, यही नहीं नीडेड है। अब तुम्हें क्यों रुक के ये बात समझाने लगा, ये आपके कन्विक्शन है, these are your convictions, conviction about how we have been developed. My job, and I'm trying to do that, got to change that conviction. Even Indian economy has to be understood. They have not promised you what they will ask you. So they can ask you anything. They can ask you to critically examine land consolidation for 150 words. They can ask you a question like, examine the impact of land consolidation and land sealing in development of agriculture in India. Pros and cons you have to discuss over there. Again 150 words. और वहां तुम ये थोड़ी कह सकते हो कि अरे लैंड कंसोलिडेशन तो सर ने जो थोड़ा पढ़ाया था मुझे तो वही आता है, सुना नहीं, फिर आगे क्या बोले थे वो। ये समझा रहा हूं दैट ये कन्विक्शन है, ये स्कूल तक चल जाती है बात कि मैं कुछ भी याद कर लूं, जो मर्जी लिख दूं, चल जाए हमारी कहानी। अनफॉर्चुनेटली यूपीएससी के पढ़ाने में भी बहुत टीचर्स ऐसे ही पढ़ा रहे हैं, वो डिस्कशन नहीं करते, डिबेट नहीं करते, अपना आते हैं, अब नीचे झुके वो बोलते गए, तुम लिखते जाओ, रेस लगाए रखो आपस में, खत्म करो और हो गया, ये कहानी हो गई। फिर 120 नंबर 110 नंबर आना भी मुश्किल 250 में। You got to understand what they are asking you. If I am asking you, last time I asked you a question about impact of socialist policies on industrialization in India. So again, we got to understand what is this person asking. Rather than thinking, okay, let's write the pros, let's write the cons, let's finish it. Structuring. तो ये समझा रहा हूँ, ये दिक्कत हर चीज में है। और फिर मैं रिपीट करूंगा, अभी माइक्रो आ जाने दो या मैथमेटिकल इको आ जाने दो, अब देखना आप बिल्कुल कॉन्शियस हो जाओगे। जो बातें आती भी रहेंगी उसको भी 2 बार पढ़ते हैं। मुझे आश्चर्य ये लगता है, मुझे नहीं पता आपके जनरेशन में क्या हो रहा है कॉलेज लेवल पे, हमारे जनरेशन में आधे लोगों का माइक्रो का पेपर खराब होता था सिर्फ उनके माइक्रो के डर की वजह से। वो पेपर से पहले ही इतना डरे होते थे कि उनका पेपर खराब होना पक्का ही था। माइक्रो है, पता नहीं क्या पूछते हैं, नंबर आता नहीं इसमें, डिफिकल्ट, इतने न्यूमेरिकल क्यों दे देते हैं। सो हाफ ऑफ द पीपल when I was in Delhi University would be worried because of that. Now we were a worried lot because just those of you who come from Delhi University economics will understand what I am saying. We used to read Halverian everything in our first year. We didn't have anything called principle of economics. So we were exposed to Halverian and all in the first year, and we were exposed to Dornbusch and Fisher in the first year. So that micro macro that you guys do in your 3rd, 4th semester, we used to do in our first year. So I understand it used to be a little tricky, but end of the day you are doing a course, sit down and do it. And to be honest, I never felt that the course is that tough. I always felt that people are not that diligent, that they have to sit down and do things they're not doing that. They're not understanding the concept, they're trying to mug it up. Again, not our generation's fault. We were developed like that, like you are developed. ये कंसेप्ट है, इसको याद कर लो, याद करके यही क्वेश्चन आएगा जो तुम पढ़े हो वही तुम सॉल्व कर देना, तुम्हारे नंबर आ जाएंगे। जब आप इकोनॉमिक्स के एग्जाम देने जाते हैं यूनिवर्सिटी में, स्पेशली इवन यूपीएससी में, एग्जैक्टली वही क्वेश्चन नहीं आएंगे, कुछ और बात आएगी। अब तुम तैयार हो या नहीं कुछ और बात के लिए, वो जरूरी है। हो सकता है वो लैंड सीलिंग को कनेक्ट कर दें विथ मॉडर्न लैंड रिफॉर्म्स, वो हमें आना चाहिए। So that was my point actually. So that's why I told you that when you say farmer producer organization, when you say cooperatives, when you say farmers developed into a sole proprietorship company, everything looks good provided you have educated the farmers how they can run it and how it is beneficial for them. Unless the farmers are not educated about it, unless they don't know the benefits of it, unless they don't get the extension services related to it, they will not be able to understand what is being done even if it is done for them. And that will create difficulty in implementation, which it did when it came to cooperative farming in India. Implementation was an issue because the beneficiaries themselves did not know how this will be implemented and what is it that lies inside for them. All right, so take it as that. Am I the only one feeling the heat or you are also feeling it? एक काम करेंगे, ये क्या पावर कट हुआ है, हमने एसी बंद क्यों किया है? एक बार बताइए, बोलिए उनको कि चला ही देंगे। ऑल राइट, मुझे लगा कि मेरा मोटापा हावी हो रहा है और मैं सोचा आपसे कंफर्म कर लेता हूँ। ओके, नाउ आई विल मेक यू कंपेयर द कोऑपरेटिव फार्मिंग एज वी आर थिंकिंग नाउ, सहकार से समृद्धि, compared to the cooperative farming we used to have then, because today when the government talks about cooperative, they have made a ministry of cooperative. and they're working on developing cooperatives not only in farming but across other sectors, and then they're trying to connect them. So I will give you a class on that. Half an hour we will talk about cooperatives development in India, modern of late, but that will happen when I'm teaching you India after 91. So right now what we do now, so this was one. I've given you evaluation of land reforms. You can just read through it, but that is mainly that we have already discussed, lack of political will, apathy of bureaucracy, and so on. I'm rather going to make you write another thing, if you could take that down. You write modern land reforms. Modern land reforms. Lack of demonstration effect was also there, Sujoy, no doubt. Yes, correct, Tanvi. But that is where Indian economy has to be understood, and then it will become easier for you. Contract farming is not cooperative farming, Mahendra. They are different. Yes, corruption or scam would always be a part of cooperatives. Okay. Let's see this then. For modern land reforms, they have asked a question once, so I'm just giving you a write-up. This is about how should land reform be done today. All right, how should land reform be done today? So you please take this down. You write, modern land reform relates to policies of land reform in current time period that can be applied in India. Full stop. The objective of land reform in current Indian context should be provision of livelihood, improvement in efficiency. I'm repeating myself. Provision of livelihood, improvement in efficiency, and promotion of equity with respect to asset redistribution. Promotion of equity with respect to asset redistribution. Again, I repeat, I told you this earlier also, that land is the major asset in rural area. So if we can redistribute the asset in favor of the poor, that will mean a good enough asset redistribution to help in income earning possibilities. All right. This is about modern land reforms objective. What are the three objectives? Make sure that employment can be generated using land as a resource. Make sure that efficiency can be developed by distribution of land, and make sure that equity can be achieved through distribution of land. All right. How do we do this? So you write within that, following steps can be taken. Following steps can be taken to promote land reforms. Following steps can be taken to promote land reforms in the modern sense. First, public land should be redistributed in a bracket you write, wherever in excess, जहां पर भी public land सरकार के जरूरत से ज्यादा है, उसे redistribute करना चाहिए. So public land should be redistributed such that it is connected to government schemes for promotion of self-employment, government schemes for promotion of self-employment, comma, by introducing training and skill development as an important part of land redistribution. Training and skill development as an important part of land redistribution. So, using land redistribution for running government schemes like Silver Revolution, like, poultry farming, Golden Revolution like beekeeping, or for that matter, even milk and dairy rearing. So if that can be connected, that okay, some skill development will be given, along with that you will be given some surplus land, which will make sure that people become better off. All right, that in that case, you're not only giving land to the people, you're also allowing them to use that land for their betterment or upgradation. In fact, there was a suggestion given around 1994-95. It was done by one of very famous economists of India. He used to work on poverty a lot. Later on, he worked on agriculture also. He was called Professor M.L. Dantwala. All right. He was a Parsi economist, hence the name like this. So Professor Dantwala ने एक बहुत अच्छा suggestion दिया. उन्होंने बोला, Professor Dantwala suggested that government can take away the land, a government can use the extra land to give it to the peasant, not completely under their control, but on lease. It's like if there is a person with surplus land in the rural area, if suppose I am an absentee landlord, I have a surplus land in the rural area, government can create a method by which they purchase the land from me. So I am not selling it directly to the peasant, and then the government can lease out this land to the peasant, all right, for 20 years, 25 years, and say that you keep cultivating this land. If you cultivate this land over 20 years, 25 years, you don't have to pay anything to us. But once we have seen you have cultivated it over 20 years, the lease period will end, and they called it reverse lease. That is now after the lease period ends, the land will not come back to the government. The land would rather be transferred in the name of the peasant. You understand that? So why this was done? Two reasons. One, many cases what happens in rural areas is people have surplus land. They have nothing to do with that land. They don't even want to keep that land, but they are unable to sell that land because others who are living in the rural area from their caste, etc., pressurize them not to sell it to others in the rural area. You understand that? मान लीजिए मेरे गांव में बहुत जमीन है, मैं बेचना चाहता हूं, लेकिन मेरे कास्ट के कुछ लोग हैं, वो मुझे बोलते हैं तुम इन लोगों को ये जमीन नहीं बेचोगे. अब मैं बेचना चाह रहा हूं लेकिन बेच नहीं सकता क्योंकि अदरवाइज मेरे लोग गुस्सा हो जाएंगे मुझसे. तो मिडवे क्या तरीका निकला, मैंने उनको नहीं बेचा, मैंने जमीन सरकार को बेच दी. नाउ दैट विल बिकम अ पैटर्न ऑफ ब्रिजिंग. और दूसरा फायदा क्या है, व्हाट इज द सेकंड बेनिफिट ऑफ इट? इफ द पेजेंट गेट्स द लैंड, it's possible they may have instant gratification. Rather than cultivating the land, they might sell it either back to the landlord, or they might sell it at cheaper rate to somebody else, use the money to gratify themselves, come back to where they were again. So what is the method to make sure they keep cultivating? Tell them the land is not yours to sell, the land is yours to cultivate. So you cultivate the land, it will remain yours, and maybe over 15 years, 20 years, if you have cultivated the land long term, you can always use it for your purposes. What's the benefit of that? Instant gratification won't kick in. You understand that? So this was a good suggestion by Professor Dantwala. Unfortunately, not many took it up. All right, because again, the social milieu of our villages is different, but not many were taking it up. But this is something we can still again think about, that the government can play the role of intermediary. Purchase it from those who have surplus and distribute it among those who don't have the land, assuring that that they are not allowed to sell that land. Will this theory remain with you? All right. You write the second point then. You write, land record should be improved. Land record should be improved by giving strength. Land record should be improved by giving strength to schemes like Swamitwa, schemes like Swamitwa. Swamitwa is a scheme launched by Government of India a couple of years back, 2 years back in fact, where people are being incentivized in rural areas to come and register their land with the government. All right, that is Swamitwa. That the scheme is encouraging people in the rural areas to come and register their land with the government, and the registration fee will be waived off. Like many people don't register their land with the government because they suspect that there will be a lot of registration fee, stamp duty as we call it. The government says we will not take any stamp duty, you come and register your land with us. All right, so in that case clarity of land holding will become much more. So you write in that, strength to schemes like Swamitwa to get better understanding of land ownership methods. To get better understanding of land ownership methods. Full stop. This will help in faster identification. This will help in faster identification of surplus land, comma, land with no claimant, In fact, you know, Professor Ashok Gulati, he writes in Indian Express very often. Every alternative Monday, he writes in Indian Express. So some of you might be reading his articles. So Professor Ashok Gulati did a research on this, and he found that at least 8 to 10% of rural land in India lies unclaimed. Nobody is claiming it, that it is my land. All right. So there is unclaimed land that we will get to know if we go on digitalizing the records. All right. So unclaimed land, and in the same thing you write, and it will also discourage Benami transactions. And why will it discourage Benami transactions? Because now you got to record with whom is your land. All right, so we'll discourage Benami transactions, comma, assuring better distribution of land. Assuring better distribution of land. Next, you write, and if they don't register, it will lie as unclaimed land. So government will take over anyways. You understand that? That over next 5-6 years, if we can continue, that's a big if, to be honest, that if we can keep continuing on this, but if we can continue and over 10 years we get the land record, and if a particular land lies unregistered, it becomes easier to find out whose land is it, and if it is no one's, then the government will take it over by the rule. All right, so that is where people will be forced to do something about it. All right. Another one you write, third, it should be assured that vulnerable groups like women, comma, tribals, comma, scheduled caste population, etc., are better accommodated by giving them priority in distribution. Fourth, you write, tenancy reforms can be improved by removing the clause of surrender of land, from owner to cultivator, and stressing more on formal contracts. I hope you get the point. Formal contracts are missing because the owners feel that if they give a formal contract, they will lose their land holding. So how about telling the owners that you will not lose your land holding, land will remain yours, but you should have a formal contract wherever there is a contract. And then use the village panchayats, use the local government, and use the block development office, Patwari's office, to be a little strict for some time, where any contract has to be a written contract or a registered contract. And again I repeat, remove the clause that owners will have to give their land to their tenants. So more owners will be encouraged then to formalize the contract, and a formal contract is always better for the tenant compared to an informal or an oral contract. All right. So the idea should be to shift towards formalization of contract. Remember one thing, as it is gradually but assuredly a change is happening in our rural areas, that is those who are better off, in 75% cases, not entirely but 75% cases, their children are not coming back to the village. Children are getting settled down in the city. Now over one further generation, what will happen? Like, just to give you an understanding, suppose I am a person X, I cultivated my land, I was my village landlord. Now I sent my children to the city to study. My children loved the life, they got a better job, their income became much higher than what my village land can promise. They stayed in the city. My children still keep coming to the village to meet me and so on, but then their retirement plans don't have village in it. And their children have not even been born in that village. Their children have not even grown up in that village. Which means a couple of generations later, for their children, the village land is an unnecessary surplus, about which they don't even know at times. Again, अगर आप आज के भारत को समझते हैं, तो आप देखते होंगे कि बहुत जगह ये बात आने शुरू हो गई है। जब बहुत लोगों की जमीन है गांव में, उनको पता भी नहीं है मेरी कितनी जमीन है, क्या है। गांव के लोग उनको बताते हैं, अरे तुम्हारी तो ये जमीन पड़ी हुई है, तुम आके देखा करो कभी। यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट? उनको मतलब भी नहीं, क्योंकि वो शहर में बिजी हैं, कुछ और काम कर रहे हैं, और इतनी इनकम उस काम से है कि गांव की जमीन देखने जाने की फुर्सत नहीं। So once it starts happening, if we can tap into that place and try making sure that we tell them, look, it's in your benefit that you formalize the contract. It's in your benefit that you sell off your land. They are selling off their land, sometimes clandestinely, sometimes openly. कभी छिपाकर, कभी खुलकर जमीन बेचे ही जा रहे हैं। बहुत लोग अपने गांव जाते ही बस जमीन बेचने के लिए हैं। मेरे 2-3 कजिन्स को देखता हूं, वो इसीलिए गांव जाते हैं। उनका पर्पस ही जमीन बेचना है बस, वो किसी और कारण से जाते ही नहीं है। और एक मेरे कजिन है, फर्स्ट कजिन्स की बात कर रहा हूं, वो यूएस में है, वहां की सिटीजनशिप मिल गई है, वहीं स्टैनफोर्ड में पढ़ाते हैं, इकोनॉमिक्स ही पढ़ाते हैं इंसिडेंटली। वो तो भारत ही नहीं आते, तो गांव तो और दूर की बात हो गई। उनके वाइफ भी फ्रेंच हैं, तो उनके वाइफ या उनके बच्चे को भी बहुत आइडिया नहीं गांव का। उनका बेटा जब एक बार दो बार गांव गया, जब गांव गया तो वो गांव का घर बड़ा सा था, वहां पीछे में काफी पेड़ वगैरह होते हैं, सबके गांव में जैसे होता है, तो वो उसको फॉरेस्टेड एरिया बोलता था। We all of us had gone together to for my grandfather's 90th birth anniversary. He was no more there and his son was there. तो यही बात है, वो उसको फॉरेस्टेड एरिया बोलता था, बोलता था आई एम गोइंग टू द जंगल टू डू सम मेडिटेशन। तो अपने ही घर में उसको जंगल दिखता था, कहीं देखा नहीं था उसने कभी। तो ये एक कॉमन फॉरम होता जा रहा है इंडिया में। गवर्नमेंट कैन कम इन ओवर हियर, दैट ओके देन कलेक्ट सच लैंड, बाय इट, और at least formalize the contract, convince such absentee landlords that a formalized contract will mean you will also get your money, and if you don't want to take that money, then transfer the land to the government and take a price. Which price? This will be our next point. This is not only this point, our next point. The government can offer them a market price rather than their own fixed anecdotal price. सरकार अगर बोलेंगे कि आप मुझे आधा में जमीन दो, कोई नहीं देगा, पर अगर बोलेंगे मार्केट प्राइस पे ये जमीन दे दो, लोग दे देंगे, एंड द गवर्नमेंट कैन मेक बेटर यूज ऑफ दैट लैंड। डोंट फॉरगेट दीज पीपल डोंट हैव मच यूज ऑफ द लैंड, सो द बार्गेनिंग इज इन फेवर ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट। Government can very well tell them, look, this is the money we are offering, you can take it one time. Even if 30% people start taking it, a surplus land starts emerging. Otherwise, again I repeat, indirectly what's happening is that this land is being taken away by others. But what's happening then is that this land is being taken away by others randomly. Mandalization of politics ka kya result? Mandalization of politics word I can use, you understand the meaning? That after 1991, the Mandal Commission and then the particular groups becoming important in India, uska natija kya hua? Other backward castes के अपलिफ्टमेंट में हर स्टेट में पर्टिकुलर अदर बैकवर्ड कास्ट रहे जो डोमिनेंट हो गए। मेरी बात को कास्ट और रिलीजन के हिसाब से मत सुनना, नहीं तो इकोनॉमिक्स की जगह कुछ और सुनने लगोगे। मैं तुम्हें सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ाता हूं ये सब बोलते हुए, मैं इन किसी आइडेंटिटी में वैसे बिलीव नहीं करता, टू बी ऑनेस्ट टू यू। बट कमिंग बैक टू माई पॉइंट, सो इमेजिन नाउ इफ आई एम अ कास्ट एक्स, I am dominant in my area, then I am now the ruling class. The other class might have been displaced, but the majority who were being ruled are still being ruled. And now I am randomly picking up the land. You understand that? कभी दादागिरी से, कभी प्यार से, लेकिन जमीन में लेता जा रहा हूं, तो अब मेरी दादागिरी चल रही है, जो पहले सो कॉल्ड अपर कास्ट की चलती थी, पर किसी ना किसी की दादागिरी ही चल रही है। तो जो डिप्राइव्ड है वो डिप्राइव्ड ही रह गए। So this becomes a dominant theme in India post-Mandalization, and then there develops a nexus between the earlier so-called upper castes and the new, dominant castes. They come together, they say, look, let's rule together, and let the other remain backward. तभी तो आप देखेंगे बिहार ले लीजिए या यूपी ले लीजिए, इसमें आप कभी-कभी देखेंगे अजीब-अजीब टर्म यूज होते हैं, महादलित, extremely backward castes। ये टर्म क्यों आते हैं? जिनको उसमें शेयर नहीं मिला जो पोस्ट मंडलाइजेशन डेवलपमेंट में शेयर मिलना था, तो इनको एज अ वोटिंग ग्रुप देखा जाता है कि अच्छा इनको अगर अलग कर दें फ्रॉम द अदर बैकवर्ड कास्ट और इनका एक नया नाम रख दें एक्सट्रीम बैकवर्ड कास्ट, then I am kind of appealing to these people that how about you support me and I will get you the same rights which these guys had in the previous government. So it becomes a bad situation, because in that case then the political dominance and the social dominance still continues at the cost of efficiency and equity both. So this is something that can be removed if we can actually make it formalized, that government can pick up land and distribute it among people or sell it off to the farmers over long-term lease. Do I believe I reach you on that? That will be our next point also. You please take it down. You write, government can offer higher compensation to encourage higher reporting and less resistance in land transfer, from absentee landlords, absentee landlord. Full stop. This land can be used for redistribution with the condition that the land cannot be sold up to a stipulated time period. Land cannot be sold up to stipulated time period. Change the paragraph again and write. Now I'm giving you the conclusion, how you will conclude on modern land reforms. So you write, modern land reforms should also focus on environmental sustenance, and therefore wherever possible it should be assured that with redistribution farmers are also trained in sustainable agricultural practice. All right, so I tried giving you around 150 words in case they ask you about modern land reforms, like how India should do land reforms now. All right, how is it different from earlier days? Again, the write-up for land consolidation is in your notes, Shyam. You can use that. All right, Professor Dathwala's suggestion is what I made you write as the 5th point, more or less. We couldn't implement it because political support was missing. Dharani portal is a good example, Prithviraj. All right, I'm asked that which country has a better land distribution system. You know, countries which focus, like South Korea has a very good land redistribution system. Japan had a very good land redistribution system. But then those distribution systems evolved over 40, 50 years. And you know what is a big connect? Wherever industrialization happened well, land redistribution became easier. Understand that. Our problem is we did not industrialize well too. If you industrialize better, then it means that agriculture as a dominant source of income and land as the dominant source of asset ceases to matter. Please understand that. Since we didn't industrialize well, land is still a dominant source of asset in our country. And then reforming the structure, land holding pattern becomes difficult. Skill development is another clause. If people are well skilled and earn from outside land, if the earning is dependent on land, आप सोचिए इंडिया में सिर्फ लैंड की बात मैं खेती के लिए नहीं कर रहा, real estate is such a big business. Again land. But imagine if people start earning out of their skill, if people start earning out of their investments in other places, say in places like financial markets, if we can have well-developed financial markets, if we can have well-developed, like imagine telling someone that I made a 5 crore profit investing in this financial market. मैं example बोल रहा हूँ. All right. So if I say that if I made a 5 crore profit in investing in the financial market, not many in India are still well versed in understanding that. But imagine if one can do that, because many are doing it. You know, many who are well trained in financial market system are making good profit out of financial market system. For them, land becomes secondary. They are not interested in holding it or clinging to it. So this is something where we need to improve our system, industrialize it, skill development, develop the financial markets, and such countries have better land reform implemented because land as an asset ceases to remain the most important. Other things start becoming more important, people start shifting that side. All right, but Japan and South Korea come to my mind when you ask me that which country had good land reform. Vulnerable groups are people that, again a question I'm asked, that how to define vulnerable group. Vulnerable group are people who have less resources, who are less well-to-do, and who have more chances of getting exploited. They are called vulnerable groups. All right, that is how we define it. Less powerful in the society. All right. Yes, I will be giving it to you, Amisha, but I'm just waiting on it. Anvesha, I'm sorry. I'm going to give it to you. I'm told that conclusion on saving and investment. I'll give it to you after I have discussed industries actually, and then I will be giving it to you. Yes, modern land reforms are today. Today, what we should do today. All right. If you could read through it, Devashish, once more and ask me your problem, that will be a better idea rather than repeating it all over again. And if you missed the last class on land ceiling, please do that also. All right. Let's see this. Yes, yes. Yes. No, so you know what? If you do skill development, I'll give you an example. Suppose there's a wasteland in the village. If we use that wasteland and train the farmer into poultry farming, then nobody has any reason to resist transfer of that wasteland, and the income level of the person also starts going up, and the catching up process begins. Yes. No, no, you will not see. That is the point. You will give up the wasteland, assuming the wasteland is not a use for you. And then the government can use that wasteland to give it to someone who can develop a poultry farm or a cattle shed and then earn better from there. Like no equity policy can be in isolation be successful. It will have to come with good infrastructure, good civic amenities, education, healthcare, financial inclusion. When you do all this, along with that, if you do things like land reforms, then you include better. You understand what? In silos, nothing will work. All right. Then, yes, yes. Yeah. Socialist countries made it easier, no? They would take away everybody's land. So there would be no land reform. I take away your land. Now you can live with that. You understand that? Like if you look at Soviet Union in the past or Chinese later on, they would collectivize the land, they will take it away from you. So you don't have a say in your land anymore. The entire land belongs to the government. Well, if you try doing this, you will have to back on the fact that you are dictatorial enough that your people will not resist it. And successful is a very tricky word here, because had that been successful, Soviet Union would not have collapsed. Or Chinese would not have shifted to market economy. So the success of that model is very questionable. You know, imagine if I come, forget land reform. Suppose you have a 2-room house and I tell you give me one, I'll give it to the poor. Think about it. How far would you agree? सोचो मतलब theoretically भी हाँ बोलने का मन नहीं करता. You understand that? So that is the fallacy of the whole idea. Please understand this. You know कि idea वही fallacy हो जाता है. तब कहते हैं मैं आपका लेके किसी और को दूंगा, गरीब को दे दूंगा. तभी मैंने आपको 2-3 क्लास पहले कहा था that India's socialism is where I am socialist and you should donate. You know, then I am socialist. If it comes to you donating, it becomes a problem. आप सोचिए रूरल लैंड रिफॉर्म्स कितनी चर्चा होती है. हम लोग आज भी डिस्कस कर रहे हैं क्योंकि एक सवाल यूपीएससी पूछ ही लेता है. There is a question that UPSC asks you very often on rural land reforms. Urban land reform, nobody talks about it. If I am living in a 4-storied house, say for a second, I should be made to give up on 3 stories and somebody else should be rehabilitated over there. That's socialistic, no? Why should all members of parliament and members of legislative assembly have those big bungalows to live in? What's the need? We can break all of that, flatten up Luton's Delhi. You know, I'm honestly telling you, pick up one spot like a Pandara Road or a Prithviraj Road or any such place, make a big, say township over there, develop 700 luxury flats. That's the number of parliamentarians. Make it 900. If we believe we are going to increase that. And these luxury flats can be condominiums, 5 bedrooms. No problem with that at all. They can absorb a large area. No problem again. And let everybody live over there. And these other places can be sold to the corporates and all who would like to pay a price for it. The value of property is 1,50,000 to 2 lakh rupees per square feet in these regions. Sell it off, get the money, and use it for upliftment of the poor. If nothing else, rehabilitation of the slums. I remember saying it in one of the government seminars, and later on my wife said that you should control yourself when you are speaking at these places. Because she was a co-speaker with me, and supposedly she is a socialist. You know? So around 13, 14 years back, I had suggested this in one of the research papers I had written and one of the seminars I was speaking at. I said, why don't we do this in our country? Why can't we get ahead like this? That the MPs and MLAs are in any case there to sacrifice for people. No, we are not even asking a sacrifice. We are just saying that remove the bungalows and replace them by flats. And let them stay there. But we don't do such things because we speak we are socialists. We are not actually, by we I don't mean us necessarily, but we say that we are for poors. When it actually comes down to whether we are for poors, the exposure is very bad. Yes, yes. क्यों? मतलब 5 साल लग जाए उसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. डेट क्यों बढ़ेगा? डेट क्यों बढ़ेगा? स्कूटर्स इंडिया बेचकर? स्कूटर्स इंडिया बेच दो, भारत मोटर पंप बेच दो, हिंदुस्तान बॉल बियरिंग बेच दो, सारी पेमेंट हो जाएगी. सारे घटिया एंटरप्राइजेस टिके हुए हैं. नहीं नहीं बिल्कुल बिकेगा. अगर हम बेचने पे आए तो जरूर बिकेगा. अगर नीलांचल इस्पात बिक गया, आप सोच सकते हैं वाजपेयी जी के 6 साल में 23 कंपनी बिकी थी. 23 कंपनी सोल्ड. हमारी प्रॉब्लम पता है क्या? हमारा एजुकेशन सिस्टम आपको इन्फॉर्म नहीं करता ठीक से. और ये मेरी कंप्लेन रही है जब से मैं स्टूडेंट था, क्योंकि जितनी बातें मैं अपने करिकुलम के बाहर सीखा उसका आधा भी अपने करिकुलम में नहीं सीखा. और हमेशा सीखते हुए ये सोचता था कि ये हमें क्यों नहीं बताते. फिर आपसे कन्फेशन भी कर लूंगा. माय क्लासरूम्स आर माय कन्फेशन रूम, सो आई डेफिनेटली डू दैट. इन माय स्टूडेंट डेज आई यूज्ड टू इंटरनली रिलिश इट, because I would know that none of my competitors know about it, so no question that they can catch me up now, because I know about it. Later on I realized that that was such a bad thinking, and I should share as much as I know with everybody else. But the problem is that our education system keeps us under a thing where they don't inform us about the details, about the happenings. I mean, that's why I told you that you guys are now today's generation. You should know that UTI collapsed in 2001, where the government had promised it's a government-owned mutual fund, and then people did not get back their money. आपकी जनरेशन आज तक सोचती है सरकारी बैंक है, ये थोड़ी कोलैप्स करेगी. अगर सरकारी बैंक कोलैप्स नहीं करेगा कभी भी, तो डिपॉजिट इंश्योरेंस एंड क्रेडिट गारंटी एक्ट, व्हाई इज इट नीडेड दैट ऑल डिपॉजिट्स अप टू 5 लाख आर सिक्योर्ड? आप कहेंगे सर वो तो प्राइवेट बैंक के लिए है, सरकारी बैंक तो कोलैप्स नहीं करेगा. प्राइवेट बैंक्स माइट कोलैप्स, हेंस दिस गारंटी. If that is true, then why government is talking about a domestically systemic important banks, ICICI, HDFC and SBI, and claims we will protect these banks and won't protect any other bank? That last line they don't say, but it's implied. Because if they're going to protect every bank, then what's the idea of a DSIB? Why should we have a DSIB then? Then every bank is going to be protected, all government banks. Otherwise, all government banks should be automatically declared as DSIB. If only private banks have to be declared as a DSIB, then what is SBI doing in it? And if you need to prepare to declare that SBI is a DSIB and other banks are not DSIB, that means that in case of a crisis, we will protect SBI, but about others I am silent. And that silence is dangerous. Because customers in our country think that public sector bank will never collapse. But government has said up to 5 lakh rupees we have in any case given a guarantee. 98.2% of deposits in India are up to 5 lakh rupees. So tomorrow if a public sector bank collapses, 98% people remain protected. The 2% rich can take care of themselves. Those rich can keep writing the plenaries and keep signing memorandums and keep standing in front of the bank. They will get nothing, zilch. But the unfortunate part is many of those rich don't even know this. And that is my challenge to our education system. That we are not even educated properly to know where is my own money put. तो इसीलिए आपसे सिखा रहा हूं कि ये चीज जब तक हम नहीं सिखाएंगे ना आपको, हम न्यूएंसिकली डिस्कशन ही नहीं कर पाएंगे. आप सोचिए हम लोग इंश्योरेंस पेपर पे ऐसे साइन करते हैं जैसे ऑटोग्राफ दे रहे हो. पढ़ते भी नहीं क्या लिखा हुआ है, क्या क्लॉजेस हैं, किस बात पे इंश्योरेंस मिलेगा, किस पे नहीं मिलेगा, अपना ऑटोग्राफ देते चले गए. जो एजेंट है बताते रहते हैं सर एक साइन यहां रख दिया, एक यहां सर, और हम करते जा रहे हैं. उनको कहते भी नहीं कि भाई एक दिन के लिए मेरे पास छोड़ो, पहले मैं पढ़ूंगा मैं किन बातों पे साइन कर रहा हूं और कल साइन करता हूं इसके ऊपर. तो आप ये हमारी लैक ऑफ एजुकेशन सिस्टम है हमारा, और ये लैक ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग है. हम अपने ही पैसे, मैं जानबूझ के आपको इंश्योरेंस का या बैंक का एग्जांपल दे रहा हूं. सोचो ये हमारे पैसे हैं, हम इनको लेके भी केयरफुल नहीं है क्योंकि हम एजुकेटेड नहीं है इनके बारे में. So since we are not educated about it, we are not careful about them, our own money. Now you can well imagine how educated we are about Indian system and how nuancical we will be in that debate then. तो इसीलिए आपको समझा रहा हूं कि अगर हमारे सॉल्यूशंस तो हैं, तरीके बन सकते हैं, प्रोवाइडेड हम उनको अप्लाई करने के पॉलिटिकल विल ला सके. यस यस. Yes. You know why they lost the elections? They lost the elections because they didn't reach the rural areas. If you do a reform where majority of your people are not touched, they won't give you votes. Manmohan Singh ji won the elections in 2009, backed by a lot of reforms his government had done between 4 and 9. Because along with the reforms that he was doing, he was also running an MNREGS. So you can't ignore 60% of your people and think you will win an election just by saying that I reformed as IMF wanted me to. Look at Naveen Patnaik ji in Orissa. You see that? Look at Nitish Kumar ji in Bihar till 2014 at least. After that he has become something else. See, when you give development to your state, your people vote for you. But you will have to give genuine development rather than development only for corporates. There are many governments which have done that in India. Narasimha Rao ji, don't forget, lost an election where he was already on a wrong pitch because of various other factors other than economy. So if you ask me, it was not the economy which made him lose things. So if you see it, it's not that good economy is bad politics. That's a wrong idea developed in India. Good economy will be good politics if you combine it by reaching out to those who are deprived also, convincing them that even you have something in it for yourself. Yeah. See, the discourse doesn't change because both sides are playing a role in it. Government wants us to believe they are liberalizing, and the opposition wants us to believe they are liberalizing. That is what is happening. But end of the day, none of the two is happening. You understand that? So that is where I told you that people got to know what's to be done. And that is where we need to know which public sector should we prevail with, which public sector is useless. Nobody will suggest that sell SBI. Nobody will suggest sell Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. Nobody will suggest that you should sell Coal India Limited. Why should we suggest that? But why should we continue with Seha Scooters India Limited? You know, or for that matter Hindustan Ball Bearing. So you know that is what I call nuancical thinking. Nuancical thinking क्या है? मैं तुम्हें एग्जांपल देता हूं. एक आपके मित्र बाहर गए, मुझे ठंड लग रही है, सारे एसी बंद कर दिए जाएं. फिर मैं बोलूं कि गर्मी लग रही है, सारे एसी चला दिए जाएं, टेम्परेचर माइनस को 18-19 करके. ये लैक ऑफ न्यूएंसिकल थिंकिंग है. न्यूएंसिकल थिंकिंग क्या है कि कुछ ऐसा टेम्परेचर रखें जिसपे लोग कंफर्टेबल हो और मैनेज करें ताकि फैन स्पीड एंड ऑल कंट्रोल में रहे. तो दो एक्सट्रीम पे जब हम सोचते हैं ना, अब मैंने अभी ऐसा बोला, आपके एक मित्र बोले सर आर यू एंटी गवर्नमेंट. अगर जैसे ही आप ऐसा सोचेंगे ना, आप न्यूएंसिकल थिंकिंग लूज कर रहे हैं. आई डोंट हैव टू बी to like the government or not like it. I don't have to marry the government. Understand that. But if the government is going wrong somewhere, we got to highlight it. If the government is going right somewhere, we got to highlight that. Unfortunately, we don't look at the economics, we look at the political economy. So we either want government to be always right, and by chance if I speak even one word there, people will be upset. Or we want governments to be always wrong. And by chance again, if I speak one word about it, people will be upset. Then you are looking for an Arnab Goswami and a Ravish Kumar. The problem is that you're not looking for anyone nuancical. Nuancical people will have their own system. They may be criticizing somebody on one day, they may be praising that person on another, based on issues rather than the person. बात तो मुद्दे की होनी चाहिए, इंसान की नहीं. हम इंसान की करने लगते हैं, मुद्दे की नहीं. ये हैं तो गलत नहीं कर सकते, क्यों नहीं कर सकते, और ये हैं तो सही नहीं कर सकते. That is the challenge we face, and as my children I will make sure that you don't suffer from that any further, provided you cooperate. You know? So I'll just take a second. I think on public sector, let's not go into that debate right now, because you have not yet studied what a public sector issue in India is. Let me take you into all that. So I'm at the moment refraining from taking anything on public sector. I again repeat, DSIB नाम मैंने लिया. अगर आप नहीं पढ़े हैं इसके बारे में, चिंता मत करिए, मैं DSIB आपको पढ़ाऊंगा. इसको डोमेस्टिकली सिस्टमिक इंपॉर्टेंट बैंक्स का एक सिस्टम है भारत में जो चलता है. मैं कंटेक्स्ट में बात कर रहा था. इफ यू हैव नॉट हर्ड अबाउट इट, इफ यू डोंट नो, डोंट वरी एट ऑल. आई विल बी टीचिंग इट टू यू. इनका मतलब होता है ये वो बैंक है जिनको सरकार ने आइडेंटिफाई किया है, एंड द गवर्नमेंट हैज सेड दैट इफ एनीथिंग हैपेंस टू दीज बैंक्स, वी विल प्रोटेक्ट देम. इन टर्न दीज बैंक्स हैव टू do more efforts, and they will have to maintain a higher capital adequacy and so on to make sure that they don't falter very soon. All right, so it's a kind of a quid pro quo. Both sides, banks will have to make their effort, and government says that we won't let them fall. I was trying to highlight to you our lack of education, where many of us are convinced that public sector banks cannot fail, while nothing in the Banking Act is promising that. My point was that कहीं पर यह लीगल प्रॉमिस नहीं है कि पब्लिक सेक्टर बैंक्स फेल नहीं करेंगे. आप सरकार को किसी कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ में चुनौती नहीं दे सकते. There is nowhere is it written. It's our belief system. We grow up with the belief system. Nobody educates us. We keep taking the wrong decisions. My point is that, you know, so I can put my money in the public sector bank, not a problem, but I should be knowing that that bank is functioning well and my money is not in danger. I should not be putting that money thinking, oh, it's a government bank, it will never collapse, hence I should put my money here. That will be a wrong decision on my part. And that was my point, and why I was highlighting it to you. I was trying to answer a question where I was trying to tell you that when we are less informed about something, then we don't know that solutions exist. Understand that. When we are more informed about something, why do I say these solutions exist? I have been spending almost 1/3 of a generation studying these things. 20-25 साल से मेरा और कोई काम ही नहीं रहा है. मैं यही चीजें पढ़ता रहा हूं, और कुछ आता भी नहीं मुझे. ये इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ लेता हूं, यही सब जो बहुत थोड़ा बहुत सीख लिया हूं. पीएचडी किए भी 22 साल हो गए, तो रीडिंग की इनके ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा. 47-48 माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स की किताब पढ़ गया हूं, तो वो है मेरे दिमाग में. 30-40 मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स की किताब पढ़ गया हूं. तो ये मेरा काम ही है ना, क्योंकि ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं बहुत जबरदस्त आदमी. मेरा काम है. मेरे तरह के सारे प्रोफेसर जो सिंसियर हैं वो पढ़ते हैं इस तरह से. उनके पास कोई चारा नहीं है. I got to sit down and read, to upgrade myself, do my research, read the research papers, know about things. तो वहां से पढ़कर जो जिस्ट होता है वो आपसे शेयर करता हूं कि क्या किया जा सकता है, क्या करना चाहिए. और आपसे ही नहीं, मैं तो सरकार से भी शेयर करता हूं बहुत बार जब भी वो पूछते हैं. दिक्कत ये है जब पॉलिटिकल विल अगर लैकिंग हुआ, जो 91 के हमने रिफॉर्म्स किए, 1985-86 गवर्नमेंट यूज्ड टू से दिस इज अनडूएबल, एंड 91 वी डिड द रिफॉर्म्स. when the push came to a shove, when IMF started clobbering us. So this is how political will becomes very important about doing things, changing them. And once the political will develops, once there is an understanding how it has to be done, the country grows thereafter. There are several instances. I'll teach you that, but you'll have to give me time. But always think like this. It's not that the status quo cannot be changed. It can be changed with better solutions, provided people are convinced about those better solutions. If I'm not convinced about the better solution, how will I implement it? The real challenge is that. All right. Anyways, now I start talking to you a talk on green revolution, and we will, yes. Yes. That will be a little premature. Let me teach you infrastructure, and I can answer this for you. This will be a little premature right now, because right now I have not told you the problem of urban development in India. So let me, because in Indian Economic Services syllabus, it's a part of the syllabus. So I got to teach you that. All right, so urbanization in India and urban economic development, and then the slum and the ghettos, the development of that. We will be discussing it. All right. Then let that rest, Divyanshi. The less I talk about myself, better it is. All right, let's see this then. Now there was a question that Divyanshi was asking me about me, but I thought in a classroom, let's keep it there. Yeah. 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 The Chanakya property that they have. Yes. 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 Okay, think. Why do you want to be a bureaucrat? To run a company or to run the nation? Why do you want to run a company then? Leave it to the managers. Think of it. I mean, why not let you run a board? Why not let you run maybe a state, maybe a city, and so on, rather than making you run a company which is already moribund? And then look at it from the point of view of a common person. Every rupee that you are wasting there is wastage of government money, and you are paying nothing for it. Let's deduct your salary if you are underperforming the way it will happen in a corporate. Why don't we do that then? Let us make you a manager, let's give you all the power, and let's deduct your salary, or let's fire you if you do underperform. Yeah, I mean, if this classroom becomes empty, surely next IS won't entertain me. They won't tell me that, no, Vibhas sir, you have taught in the past, so let's do one thing. You teach 600 students in one group. And that reminds me, there are several of you who have still not joined the Telegram group. Please do join the Telegram group. But say if they tell me that there are 600 people whom you teach, so what we do is, next 2 years, even though you are teaching no one, we will keep you kind of on a pension front. Won't happen, no? But imagine bureaucrats have that chance. And that takes away the whole initiative of working hard to run the company better. So it's always the incentive, disincentive. Now, you may have one instance or a couple of instances, like say an ML Khattar or Jagdish Bhargav, who could run a Maruti pretty well. But there are more exceptions rather than rules, no? So exceptions cannot be made the rule. What is rule is what we have seen in Indian context. And that's not the fault of the bureaucrat. The person is not trained to run a company. The person is trained to run the system. आपको लबासना से लेकर आगे तक जहां भी ट्रेनिंग देंगे कहीं भी कंपनी चलाना नहीं सिखाएंगे. और आप में से जो भी लोग एमबीए किए हुए हैं वो जानते हैं कि एक कंपनी चलाना, एक मैनेजमेंट करना, वो बिल्कुल एक अलग डील है। तो एक्सपर्टीज पे क्यों कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर रहे हैं हम लोगों की? सरकार ही कंपनी चलाएगी और घटिया तरीके से चलाएगी, ये जिद क्यों हमारे देश में, मुझे कभी समझ नहीं आता। हम जिद पकड़े हुए हैं, नहीं कि एक दिन तो इस कंपनी को ठीक कर ही लेंगे। किस दिन? After how many years? After wasting thousands of crores of taxpayers' money just because I believe. And that's criminal. It's like I start believing that even though X is not a part of your syllabus, but X should be taught because I like X. That should be discriminatory on your part. कि आपको ऑब्जेक्ट कर देंगे आपके, ये क्या पढ़ा रहे हैं आप, ये तो मैं आपको भी शुरू हो जाऊं, ये सारे प्रूफ्स की कर सकता हूं, ये जो आपको पढ़ा रहा हूं, आप कुछ लोग डी स्कूल में ईडीपीआई पढ़े होंगे, इन चीजों के मैथमेटिकल प्रूफ्स हो सकते हैं। वो थोड़ी करूंगा यूपीएससी ऑप्शनल की क्लास में, बट अपने बखान करने के लिए करने लग जाऊं। ये देखो बेटा, ये वाला मॉडल यहाँ वर्क करता है, और ये कगान का मॉडल है, ये टाइम सीरीज मॉडल ऐसे वर्क करेगा, ये दिखाता है कि कैसे ये वाला जो थ्योरी आपको दे रहा हूँ वर्क। अब ये सीखने नहीं आया हूँ सर, यहाँ मैं ऑप्शनल क्लियर करने आया हूँ, यही सिखा रहा हूँ कि सरकार का जो काम है सरकार करें, और मैं आपको धीरे धीरे वो क्लियर करूंगा। राइट नाउ इट्स वेरी अर्ली डेज इन इकोनॉमिक्स, आई विल क्लियर इट टू यू, बट लेट गवर्नमेंट डू द जॉब ऑफ गवर्नेंस। ऑन द अदर हैंड सोच के देखो, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इज गवर्नमेंट जॉब, दे समटाइम्स डोंट डू इट वेल। Think about it. Administration is government's job, they sometimes don't do it well. And what do they say? We have shortage of resources. And then I have shortage of resources and I'm using my resources to run a moribund company. What kind of contradiction is that? मैं तुम्हें टाइम ना दूं, अब सोच के देखिए, मैं तुम्हें टाइम ना दूं, लेकिन कोई और है, किसी और के लिए कुछ काम कर रहा हूं, बैठकर किसी का डाउट सॉल्व कर रहा हूं, तो आप बोलेंगे ना कि सर हम आपके बच्चे हैं जिन्होंने आपको चूज किया फी पे करके। तो अगर आपके पास कम टाइम है तो वो आप हमें दीजिए, अपना कम टाइम कहीं और मत दीजिए। इसी को रिसोर्स एलोकेशन कहा जाता है। तो सरकार के पास अगर कम रिसोर्सेज हैं तो वहां एलोकेट करें जो सरकार ही कर सकते हैं। एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन कैन बी डन ओनली बाय द गवर्नमेंट, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर कैन बी रन ओनली बाय द गवर्नमेंट, एजुकेशन सिस्टम कैन बी मेड ओनली बाय द गवर्नमेंट, healthcare can be developed only by the government. When you ask the government, why don't we get good services in these? They say we have a resource constraint. On one hand, they say we have a resource constraint. On the other hand, we have 1100 crore for Scooters India. How do you justify it? Think of that. HMT watches. Many, you just name them and you have them. That was my point to you, and that is always my point to you. If the government can run the country well, and if government has surplus resource after that, and they want to use that resource to run a company, I may still be thinking that, okay, maybe they have a chance. But if they don't even are running what they are expected to run well, and then they want us, and every time you ask them, why is it not happening well? What we are told is a shortage of resource. My point is that. जब भी आप बोलेंगे सरकारी स्कूल अच्छा फंक्शन क्यों नहीं कर रहे, बिल्डिंग्स ठीक से क्यों नहीं बनी हुई हैं, अरे अब बजट की कमी है, इस बजट में इतनी ही बिल्डिंग बन सकती है। तो गरीब के बच्चे जहां पढ़ने जाते हैं वो बजट में उतनी ही बिल्डिंग बनेगी जहां पे कि टॉयलेट भी ठीक से नहीं बने हुए हैं। लेकिन हम स्कूटर्स इंडिया चला सकते हैं, एयर इंडिया चला रहे थे। शुक्र है हमारे गरीब लोग ये नहीं जानते ना, लिंच कर देते हमें कि हमारे पैसे पर अय्याशी करते और हमें बोलते हो पैसा नहीं है। वो जानते नहीं है कि पैसा है, उनके लिए नहीं है। सिटी की ब्यूटिफिकेशन हो सकती है लेकिन नाइट शेल्टर नहीं बन सकते, और उनको बोलते हैं कि नहीं बेटा क्या बताएं, पैसे नहीं है, वरना नाइट शेल्टर बनाने की इच्छा तो बहुत है मेरी। सो अंडरस्टैंड दैट यू नो आवर प्रायोरिटीज आर समहाउ नॉट वेल डिफाइंड बिकॉज ऑफ द आइडियोलॉजिकल बायस वी ग्रो अप विथ। You know, that was my teaching point to you actually, and believe me, I'll give you a lot of clarity on all this. You will just have to give me time and let me teach you theories on economics, and you will get where I'm coming from. All right, I have a lot of things stored here, and I come from all of those. You know, so wherever I'm coming from, you give me next 3.5, 4 months, and you will also be clear about why do I speak what I speak. As far as answering a question that Ved Prakash asked me, that are you anti-government? Not at all. In fact, many people accuse me of being pro-government. my Twitter line sometimes get filled with that you support the police and you support the government and you are so pro-government, why don't you take a stand against them? Someday I write something like this, which I spoke today. Other side gets fired up. Why are you anti-government? Why don't you like the government? But it's nothing like that. I mean, you train yourself not to be anti or pro. You train yourself to look at the situation and then take a call as to what will be my take on that. That is the idea. And inform yourself. कोई अगर आकर बोलते हैं जल जीवन मिशन तो सक्सेसफुल नहीं है, उज्ज्वला योजना सक्सेसफुल नहीं है, तो रिसर्च करो कि सच में सक्सेसफुल नहीं है या ये मुझे समझाना चाहते हैं कि सक्सेसफुल नहीं है. Understand that also. I had said this to one of my friends. He's a Congress party member. So I told him this once. No, honestly, I'm telling you. कुछ बात हुई, उन्होंने कहा ये योजना सक्सेसफुल नहीं है. मैंने कहा इसीलिए तुम लोग हारते हो. Because you guys don't do the research of what is happening on the ground. So if you keep blaming that it's the marketing possibility and the communal angle which makes the government win, you are missing the entire woods for the trees. The whole point is that. You're confusing it. Indians are not that foolish that they will vote believing only the communal angle or believing only one angle. It has to be multiple reasons. But if I don't want to check in what is my fault, it's like tomorrow you reject me. Go to some other person to study. And I keep claiming, oh, that person has a good marketing strategy and that person has a very good, that fellow has actually bedraggled the children. बुद्धू बना लिया मेरे बच्चों को. वरना तो मैं अच्छा ही पढ़ा रहा था. मेरी तो कोई गलती नहीं थी. तो मैं गलती लगातार करता रहूंगा. और वो मुझे लगातार हराते रहेंगे. Understand that. इसीलिए मुकेश कुमार लगातार खेल रहे हैं. क्रिकेट टीम की बात कर रहा हूं. वरना कोई लॉजिक नहीं है कि वो क्यों खेलें. ऐसा कोई अचीवमेंट नहीं है उनका. पर ये लगातार दोहराने वाली गलती है. 2019 का विजय शंकर. तो ये समझा रहा हूं आपको दैट वी हैव टू बी केयरफुल अबाउट why somebody is beating me, why am I getting beaten in the game. If I'm getting beaten across, somebody must be doing some work. And then I have to do a detailed study of exactly what Ujjwala Yojana has achieved, exactly what Jal Jeevan scheme has achieved, or for that matter, Saubhagya Yojana has achieved. Why don't you see ever much of an article written on Saubhagya, Sehaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana? It's a successful scheme. Same thing applies on Jal Jeevan. अभी 6 साल पहले, आप लोग इतने बड़े हो कि कुछ लोग 6 साल पहले आर्टिकल्स पढ़ते होंगे. 6 साल पहले ये लिखा जा रहा था that there is hardly any saving in Jan Dhan Yojana. Today there are more than 50 crore accounts saving 2 lakh crore in Jan Dhan Yojana. So if you are dismissive about something, then you will find methods to get dismissive about it without realizing the on the ground activity. And you will always find 10 instances supporting your view. 10 instances. They can always be found. क्योंकि आप तो वही 10 खोज के satisfy हो गए ना. मैं मानता हूं ये सही है, अब 10 उसी तरह के ढूंढ लिए. हाँ, ये तो सही बात ही है. So that is what I'm telling you. Large samples are, that is why, more trustworthy than very small samples. So be careful on those and you will, I think, nuancically discuss things. Okay. Now see, when we talk about green revolution, I'll give you a small timeline. It's there in your notes, so I'm not giving you a write-up per se. Your notes have entire thing of it, but I want you to just get a timeline as to how things evolved. 1957-58, we have, okay, let's take it a little before that. 1951 to 56, in first 5-year plan, there was a focus on agriculture. Mainly investment in dam building and development of farming technology. The first 5-year plan was focusing on all this. The dam building, farming technology, focus on that. All right. Benami transaction may or may not be related to absentee landlordism. Janvi, I was answering your question. Formal contract cannot be fudged because you will be caught by the authorities then. No, it was all done together, Shaista. All these reforms were done together. Shubi, regarding public land should be redistributed, you please send a message to me and I'll answer that. All right. Yes, the Scooters India website will show that it is under closure. Bhavya tells me that Scooters India website shows that it is under closure. It does show that it is under closure because they have not been producing anything for the last 20 odd years now. All right, but still there is payment made for workers. There is payment made for machine maintenance. There is payment made for land, etc. that they have taken. More importantly, they are sitting on government land which they are losing across. So if you will see their account books, you will still see a loss that they are making on the fixed costs that are involved there. That is what becomes Scooters India. I just jokingly keep mentioning it to you. Scooters India actually represents everything that the Air India represented earlier. You know, it's a representation. Take them more like a symbol of our graft and inherited inefficiency. That is what they represent. I never mean that Scooters India is the only one. There are many such. But what I try naming them and telling you because I want you to understand that these are inefficiencies that we can easily get rid of, but due to lack of political will, we don't get rid of it. The only thing is that. It's not that that's such a difficult thing to do, that we can't get rid of them. And we can use that money for much better purposes. The point is that. All right, let's see this then. Now 1957-58, we had a severe drought which created a balance of payment crisis. Now, in one of your groups, I saw in one of the informal groups, I think that there was a talk about how can current account and capital account both be in deficit. That is when you don't take the accommodative transactions. But let me teach you BOP and I will teach you that. All right, I deliberately did not answer for that. I will teach you balance of payment in detail and I will teach you how both can be in deficit, both can be in surplus, and how does balance of payment manage or balance. All right. So we had a balance of payment crisis in 57-58 and this resulted in India's first recession. So government got conscious that if we don't do well agriculturally, then this is the next step, that this is how we will suffer. That if agriculture doesn't do well in India, then this is where we suffer. So what do we do now? So government invites a team from Ford Foundation in United States in 1958. Ford Foundation team. They came to India, to suggest about how to develop Indian agriculture. All right, they came to India to suggest about how to develop Indian agriculture. It's all there in your notes. If you will see, I've given you those stories. And then they submitted a paper, India's Food Crisis and Steps to Meet It in 1959. India's Food Crisis and Steps to Meet It. This paper they submitted in 1959. Ford Foundation team ने ये पेपर सबमिट किया एज अ सॉल्यूशन. ऑलराइट, उन्होंने सर्च किया, सारी चीजें पता की और ये पेपर सबमिट किया. दे सबमिटेड दिस पेपर in 1959 suggesting of measures that can be taken to develop India. Alright, that is what they did. Then 1961-62 for the first time, again I've given it to you in your notes, so I'm not making you necessarily write it. Just one correction there. In your notes, it's written 1960, it should be 61-62. Page 23. In the topic Green Revolution, page 23, in the topic Green Revolution, you see, it's written in 1960 the government introduced. I hope you get that. Make it 1961-62. Alright. And another word you will see, government introduced intensive area development program. All right, correct that. It was integrated area development program. 1961-62, the government introduced integrated area development program. All right, it was not intensive, integrated area development program. All right, this was 61-62, not 60. The government introduced this. All right, and this was, I'll tell you, the idea was this IADP introduced in 1961-62 was about modernization of agriculture in India. और ये जो मॉडर्नाइजेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर की बात हुई, एक बात समझना यहां भी, दिस वाज इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन 7 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स over 7 states. All right, this was introduced in 7 districts over 7 states on modernization of agriculture. 7 districts over 7 states. हर स्टेट से एक एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट चूज किया गया and इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया. Every state would contribute 1 district and 7 districts over 7 states. This was IADP 1961-62. Now, gradually this became more popular and government felt it's working. So in 1964-65, government introduced another program, Intensive Agricultural Area Program. It's given correctly in your book, nothing to change, or in your notes, nothing to change. 1964-65, the government introduced Intensive Agricultural Area Program across 114 districts of India. 114 districts of India. So it was now spread on a larger scale. The idea was to find out how does it perform, and if it can perform well, how we can get good returns out of that. Well, this was 1964-65. But then I'm sure you would recall we have discussed, in spite of this program, we had a bad drought 64-65 and we had a bad drought 65-66, which again made the government think what more now. अब और क्या करें, ये सब कर रहे हैं फिर भी ड्राउट्स आ रहे हैं, फसल खराब हो रही है, इंपोर्ट करना पड़ रहा है. एंड दैट वाज व्हेन प्रोफेसर नॉर्मन बोरलॉग had invented high yielding variety of seeds. He was a Mexican and he had invented high yielding variety of seeds for wheat. 1966, Professor M.S. Swaminathan, he was the agricultural advisor to the Prime Minister. Mrs. Gandhi was the Prime Minister. So Professor Swaminathan told her that if India has to be self-dependent in food, we should think about this high-yielding variety of seeds for wheat. They were also called dwarf varieties. Dwarf variety इसलिए because the plant won't grow tall, the plant will be short, and the plant will be laterally quite thick and bushy. All right, and then the grains will have, there will be too many grains in the plant. All right, so the high yielding variety came from that. लंबे plant नहीं, पहले जो इंडिया में plant थे wheat के वो लंबे होते थे. ये छोटे होंगे लेकिन sideways फैले रहेंगे और इन plants में grains बहुत सारे होंगे. All right, there will be too many grains in them and they will grow sideways and they will be small, and that is why called dwarf variety, and that was the high yielding variety of seeds. Now this needed 4 things. What it needed was high yielding variety of seeds. What it also needed, and then of course gradually for rice also it was developed. So in wheat and rice the revolution happened. All right, green revolution, starting with high yielding variety of seeds, wheat, and then rice also it happened. When India introduced it, we introduced it with the Kharif season, that is paddy season, with high yielding variety of rice, then high yielding variety of wheat. Now, high yielding variety of seeds was one thing. Another thing that was a part of it was assured irrigation. It was said that you must have assured irrigation to make sure that your crops do well. Another was chemical fertilizers. chemical fertilizers so that productivity can be kept high. And another was chemical pesticide. So these things became the important ingredient of the development process. High yielding variety of seeds, chemical fertilizer, chemical pesticides, assured irrigation. All right, these things became, I'll just take a second, became an important part of Green Revolution development. Now what happens, in 1966, 67, we were producing 60 million tons of food grains in India. And within 5 years, by 1971, we were producing 100 million tons plus. So within a short span of time, the production actually doubled, and that is why the revolution word used. All right, within a short span of time, the production actually doubled, and that is why we use the term revolution. Green, because it happened in wheat and rice. Since the development was in green crops, wheat and rice, so green. Revolution, because the change happened on a large scale in a very short span of time. So within 5 years, production almost doubled in India, and by 1971-72, we had become self-sufficient in food grain production. Otherwise, we had to import food from the Americans, and they used to give us food under a scheme called PL 480 scheme, priority lending 480 scheme, and then that used to do a lot of arm twisting with us. That we could save ourselves from by 1972. All right, so that was why the name Green Revolution. Now there are 2-3 questions I'll answer for you one by one. One question, why did we choose only Western India initially? Like initially we chose Punjab, Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh. So why did we choose Western India, especially Northwestern India, for developing Green Revolution? Another is, how did Green Revolution spread across? So it started in Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh. Then Tamil Nadu picked it up in rice, paddy that is. Coastal Andhra Pradesh picked it up in rice, paddy cultivation. So this also started happening over the period, over 10-15 years, and growth happened. Some states the growth increased, but revolution never happened, like say a Jharkhand or an Assam or a Bihar. It was not that productivity increased superlatively, but productivity increased nevertheless. But the real increase was seen in Punjab, Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh, where the revolution started. All right, you ask me the question, then I go ahead. Come again. No, Professor Norman Borlaug was the one who developed this wheat and rice. He was the inventor of this high yielding variety. They are lab created varieties. Professor Swaminathan knew about it, suggested Mrs. Gandhi to adapt it. In fact, there were days again when there was a lot of opposition to it in India. Many people were against adopting it, especially people, who were traditionalists, and some people who were on the left side who said, no, Americans can do not right things, and so on. Mrs. Gandhi's insistence got it through. In fact, Parliament passed it with a very slim majority of 52%. 48 had voted against it. But Mrs. Gandhi knew that this is the last chance we have of getting food secured. And many people claimed that this will never make India food secured. Of course, all that came wrong. Many said that this will result in, within 5 years, all land going barren. So India, we have always been like this. अभी भी देखोगे कोई नया तरह की चीज आती है, लोग tremendous claims दे देते हैं, ये हो जाएगा, ऐसा हो जाएगा, और 5 साल बाद जब वो नहीं होता तो sorry भी नहीं बोलते. Interesting बात ये है. The point is that. All right. He was a Mexican by birth. All right, he was a Mexican by birth. All right. Green Revolution did work for that, yes. Then gradually it spread to other things. All right. Like the high yielding variety of seeds were developed in wheat and rice. Hence Green Revolution in wheat and rice. Pulses, well, we are still producing much less than what we ought to. I'll discuss cropping pattern in India later on, and you will see we never had a proper revolution in pulses. No, yeah, they suggested that we should mechanize, we should use modern equipments. They also suggested that larger land holdings should be practiced. All these things were suggested by them. So that became the basis. Okay, I just want you to write one thing first. Reasons for choosing northwestern India. ये आपके notes में नहीं है इसलिए आपको लिखवा रहा हूँ. reasons for choosing northwestern India for green revolution. When I say northwestern India, it was mainly Punjab, Haryana and western Uttar Pradesh. And even in western Uttar Pradesh, in those days, don't forget, Uttarakhand used to be a part of Uttar Pradesh. But even in western Uttar Pradesh, it was mostly about the plain areas, ranging from Meerut till something like Shamli and Muzaffarnagar area per se. That became the dominant part. In fact, when you see all these places like Bagpat and all, which became very important, so it was the post-Green Revolution time that these places became pretty important by growing and becoming rich very fast. All right. You take this up, then first point, you write, land holding was less fragmented. Land holding was less fragmented, and therefore land holding was less fragmented and therefore more suitable for introducing modern equipment and new technology. Modern equipment and new technology. Second, I hope you get the point that these were places where Mehalwari system used to be there. So due to that, the fragmentation of land holding was much less. In areas where Zamindari was there or Jagirdari was there, the land holdings became very fragmented because of passing on from one generation to another. In Mehalwari, the Mehalwar would hold the land as a trustee of the others who were around them. So the fragmentation would be very less. Second, you write, irrigation system was better established. Irrigation system was better established, and canal irrigation, I'm sure you would understand, Punjab had 5 rivers, out of which 3 would be on Indian side, and then there was canal irrigation, and all those canals were built. So assured irrigation was present. So canal irrigation was an assurance for continuous water supply which also helped in better solubility of pesticides and fertilizers. Third, these regions were already practicing mechanization, which was observed, make it which was not observed, anywhere else, except Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra. Which was not observed anywhere else except Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra. All right, that was again a factor. Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra were slightly mechanized, but otherwise it was Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, which was heavily mechanized already, or decently mechanized. And in fact, they had shown a lot of responsiveness to IAAP. Many of the districts which were cultivated during IAAP had shown the responsiveness to modernize. In fact, that was a big factor. We will write it as the 4th point. willingness of the farmers. The farmers were more willing to experiment with the new crops in these areas. In many other areas, the farmers showed tremendous unwillingness to go with the new crop. All right. So that was again a factor that farmers were more willing to experiment. So you write that as your fourth point. The farmers were more willing. The farmers were more willing to use new methods, after IAAP, Intensive Agriculture Area Program, IAAP, had tested farmers all over India. So, across many districts of India, IAAP was trying to introduce them to new varieties, new methodologies. Many places the farmers were resistant to change, that we don't want to change the method. Punjab and Haryana, the farmers were quite open. They said, we are willing to change, we are willing to do these things. And that encouraged the government to go that side. Now, what did the government say to justify it? If you come back to your page 23, and you will see there, I've given you the notes. The government gave 5 main reasons for introducing the new technique. Page number 23, if you could check that. Page number 23, yes. Geography like? Yeah, but the soil was much more conducive in West Bengal, Bihar and eastern Uttar Pradesh. Khadar kind of alluvial soil, with rainfall. If you take rice, for example, rainfall between 100 centimeter to 120 centimeters. For wheat, yes, it was suitable. For wheat, again, eastern Uttar Pradesh and Champaran district of Bihar, they could be pretty well for wheat. The problem was infrastructure missing, assured irrigation facility missing, farmers' willingness to experiment missing, crop fragmentation of land being more. These were the issues in these places. All right. Okay. Now I'm just, yes. Yeah, mechanization is using tractors or using harvesters, using machines to plow rather than bullocks and all. That is like more usage of machines rather than animals or humans. That is mechanization. Later on, 30. See, one thing always, let me reach there sequentially and I will tell you what happened exactly. Droughts. Drought was mainly influencing central India, western India and northern India. Most of our wheat producing belt. Alright, so that is why it was hurting us badly. Oh, okay, I'll tell you. Whenever we say central India, the major idea is that we are talking about Malwa Bundelkhand Plateau. Yes, for agricultural purpose. When we say northern India, we are mainly talking about the Punjab Haryana plains. All right. Similarly, when we say western India, we are talking about the Gujarat coastal regions, the Maharashtra coastal regions, the Vidarbha region in Maharashtra. These are western agricultural zones of India. So that is where drought was most significant. And then there was drought in eastern India, also because of lack of any assured irrigation. So even if you look at Bihar and eastern Uttar Pradesh, Assam, they didn't get good rainfall. All right. Even though there was significant rainfall and good enough production in Andhra Pradesh, in the same year, in Andhra Pradesh, there was significant production in Tamil Nadu, but that was not good enough to feed entire India. All right, that became a trouble part. All right. I'll tell you, the basic point is when your productivity is low, and then if you get affected by any kind of an external event, you go down even more drastically. That is what was happening with us. All right. Then, when we look at this, government gave 5 main reasons for introducing the new technique. 1, it was considered the only means of making a breakthrough in the shortest span of time. Government said we are going for green revolution because we need to be food sufficient very soon, and green revolution methods look the only mean that in the shortest span of time we can be food sufficient. The second thing they said, agricultural inputs were scarce. So since the inputs were scarce, it was not possible to implement the scheme all over the country. Then we could implement the scheme only in few places in the country. So that is why agricultural inputs were scarce and was not possible to meet the needs of entire country, hence initiated in selected regions. The third factor, they said, high yielding variety production was introduced to remove the dependence on foreign aid, to save foreign exchange reserves, both. One, foreign aid will not be needed, and foreign exchange reserves that we spend on importables will be reduced if we can have self-sufficiency in food grain production. Another reason that they said, demonstration effect for farmers in other regions once the program was successful to expand and spread it across the country. That was intention of the government. They said that if it succeeds in Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, then farmers from other places will see it. And today they may be reluctant about using these seeds or using this technology, but as they will see other states succeeding, they will also pick it up. All right, that was again the reason why this was brought in. And another thing they said, politically it was becoming impossible to continue with lack of self-sufficiency in food production. Because as I told you, 19 years post-independence, we were still struggling for food and we were still struggling with poverty. So obviously it was becoming politically questionable. In fact, the last line that I tell you was what Mrs. Gandhi had spoken in the parliament. She said that how do we justify India's democracy to India's poor if we cannot even feed them? All right, that was a very landmark speech that she had given to motivate people to vote in favor of Green Revolution. So, and she, many people again now, we all know that politically things change. तो अभी मिसेस गांधी ने जो अच्छे काम किए वो लोग थोड़ा गुस्सा हो जाते हैं जानने पर, जो सरकार को अभी सपोर्ट करते हैं. तो कुछ लोग बोलते हैं लाल बहादुर शास्त्री जी ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन लेकर आए थे. लाल बहादुर शास्त्री जी IAAP implement कर रहे थे. Understand that. But Green Revolution and high yielding variety of seeds, and Norman Borlaug and MS Swaminathan, all that story went through only because Mrs. Gandhi was the willing person. अब फिर मैं तुम्हें यही बता रहा हूँ, जब मैं तुम्हें इंडस्ट्री पढ़ा रहा था कुछ दिनों पहले, तो मिसेस गांधी के बारे में कितनी सारी बातें बोल रहा था कि उनको इकोनॉमिक्स करने नहीं आता था. अभी उन्होंने अच्छा डिसीजन लिया ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन, तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ उन्होंने अच्छा डिसीजन लिया. अब बोलेंगे पता नहीं सर मिसेस गांधी से कितना प्यार करते हैं. मैं अर्लियर मिसेस गांधी की बात कर रहा हूँ. तो बहुत प्यार करता हूं, हमारी प्रधानमंत्री थी, लेकिन जो काम गलत किए वो तो हाईलाइट करना पड़ेगा. हिस्ट्री कांट बी काइंड टू योर मिस्टेक्स. सो दैट इज द वे टू, अगेन आई जस्ट ट्राइड हाईलाइटिंग इट टू यू टू मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट हाउ इश्यूज आर इंपॉर्टेंट. सो ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन, ऑफ कोर्स मिसेस गांधी बुलडोज्ड इट थ्रू, did her steps, take her steps. In fact, she was also giving a lot of incentives to Punjab and Haryana government to take it up. And then by 1972, we were self-dependent. Again, I've given you those stories. You move to this one, very fast, the benefits of Green Revolution. इसमें एक बात करोगे, जो थर्ड पॉइंट है उसको कट कर लेना, वो एक स्टडी है ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन का, बेनिफिट्स नहीं है. चेंजेस इन क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न, उसको कट कर लो. मैं आपको दूसरी बातें लिखवाऊंगा, पर थर्ड पॉइंट वो कट कर लो पहले ही. कमिंग बैक टू दिस, द फर्स्ट बेनिफिट वाज very fast increase in production of cereals. All right, cereals is the food grains and all. And that meant India became self-sufficient. In fact, it went on, even post-1970-71, the growth went on. And today, I mean, if you look at India's food production today we produce more than 300 million tons of food grains. 2022-23, the government estimates suggest that we produce 318 million tons of food grains, out of which 230 million tons were wheat and rice. You know, in 2022-23. अब ये उल्टा प्रॉब्लम डाल रहे हैं, हम जरूरत से ज्यादा प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं. The point is that. So let me discuss with you India agriculture after 1991, and I will be discussing these things with you. But Green Revolution was one situation when we underproduced. Now the Green Revolution happens, we produce a lot, and today we face another extreme where we are doing overproduction of wheat and rice at the cost of many other crops like say oil seeds or pulses or fruits and vegetables and so on. So that is another challenge today we face. But agar us samay ki baat kare, it was a huge growth. Within 5 years the production doubled, almost doubled, and that was why the name revolution. Second benefit was increase in production of commercial crops. I have given you some numbers there. Oil seeds increased from 7 million ton to 9 million ton between 61 and 79, but then jumped to 19 million tons by 1990-91. Potatoes increased from 3 million ton to 15 million ton, and production of sugarcane doubled in the same time period. You see that? So again remember, this commercial crop increase was not because of high yielding variety of seeds. It was because of the techniques learned during Green Revolution. That we learned the techniques with respect to better mechanization, better quality fertilizer, better quality pesticides. So those techniques made us increase the productivity of other crops also compared to the crops production before that. Then third point, you skip that for the time being. The fourth point, boost to agricultural employments. So two things happened which gave a boost to agricultural employment. One was multiple cropping started happening. If you recall, I told you that we used to have an agriculture which will be a monoculture. Monoculture meant one crop in the entire year. Now there was multiculture. All right, so two crops at least, sometimes three. So in 1 year, every farm will have at least two crops and sometimes three. That increased employment. Second was, with Green Revolution, the income became more, productivity became more, so people started hiring more workers, people started hiring or employing more people in trading, more people for harvesting. You see that the supply chain developed. So that is why more employment. So if you would see the points, multiple cropping patterns, on an average growing two crops became a norm, and multiple cropping required more workers, reduced seasonal unemployment, especially in states which could diversify into allied activities. So seasonal employment was even lesser in states which could diversify into dairying, states which could diversify into poultry, that is the allied activities. Sheep keeping, goat keeping, all that started becoming an activity because more money meant more resource utilization. And second was, agricultural employment also improved with Green Revolution due to higher agricultural productivity, which increased both the average product and marginal product of the workers. So now, on an average, the workers were producing more, and every extra worker was contributing more than the previous one. So the willingness to hire workers and pay them higher wage became higher. Do I believe I reach you on that? मार्जिनल प्रोडक्ट बढ़ने का मतलब क्या हुआ? हर अगला लेबर आवर जो आप लगा रहे हैं वो हायर प्रोडक्शन दे रहा है आपको. So more marginal product means every extra labor hour is giving you higher production. And I'm sure you understand that higher marginal product will mean average product will rise. If my marginal is rising, average got to rise. And average product was rising. On an average, the workers were producing more. So what was happening was the subsistence nature of Indian agriculture was changing to a commercial nature now, creating more employment in the supply chain. So these were the factors where Green Revolution was helping in employment generation. Of course, when I will teach you the criticisms, Green Revolution also compromised in employment because machines replaced workers. तो Green Revolution का दोनों impact था. Employment generate भी कर रहे थे, employment reduce भी कर रहे थे. दोनों बातें करेंगे हम लोग. But ये बात समझ गए हैं आप जरूर? And the next was, it increased the linkages between agriculture and industry. How? Now there would be commercial production like cotton or sugarcane and so on, which will supply inputs to the industry. On the other hand, industries will supply fertilizer, pesticides, tractors, threshers, so inputs to agriculture. So the linkages, the connects between agriculture and industry became higher with the advent of Green Revolution. Do I believe this linkages part is understood by all? I'm just repeating it once more in case you miss it somewhere. Forward linkages when you sell your product to somebody. There is a forward linkage. So agriculture selling cotton and jute, etc. to industry is agriculture's forward linkage to industry. Backward linkage is when you buy your raw material from someone. So agriculture buying pesticides, fertilizer, tractors, threshers was backward linkage of agriculture from industry. So now there was backward linkage of agriculture from industry and forward linkage of agriculture from industry, which was increasing overall, production in agriculture. And then you write one more. आप उसको third point की जगह लिख लो. Cropping pattern की बात को avoid करना. वो advantage नहीं था Green Revolution का. You write the third point differently. You write, it contributed significantly to increasing contributed significantly to increasing income in farming, which improved productivity and developed a new class of farmers, called and within inverted comma you write gentlemen farmers. I'll tell you what was this story. Many people from Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh would work in the army, in the non-commissioned forces, the junior commissioned officers as we call them, Naib Subedar, Havaldar and so on. Now these people would retire, they will come back to their village and they will start practicing agriculture in a better informed manner, in a more experimental manner, contributing further to growth of Green Revolution. So they were not only people who were well educated, better educated, they were also people who had seen a lot of world outside. So they came back, they brought their own experiences, created the name what was called the gentlemen farmers. ये gentleman farmer name उनको प्रोफेसर रमेश चंद ने दिया था या दिया है. Alright, Professor Ramesh Chand. उन्होंने बोला Punjab and Haryana could do even better because of gentlemen farmers who were in a better position to sell these crops. Like they didn't only develop cropping, they also created an institution to purchase these crops, sell them to the government, develop the whole mandi system and all. And that promoted Green Revolution even further and agricultural income in Punjab and Haryana in those days. So these are the advantages of Green Revolution. I will keep the story till there today. We will talk about disadvantages of Green Revolution and talks on Evergreen Revolution and few more things on industrialization as I see you tomorrow. All right. So tomorrow again at 3 we'll meet and begin from here. Thank you. Aarti, we will discuss it there. Arunachal Pradesh in any case is not covered under Saubhagya. If you will check their website, they're clear on that. We will discuss it, Bhumika, why loss-making enterprises are supported. IADP is Integrated Area Development Program. Integrated Area Development Program, Jagrati. It is most unproductive, Shashwat. वो misprint है, productive नहीं, unproductive होना चाहिए. Let's discuss agriculture more, Shubhi. We will talk about it. The problem is that we have become a wheat-rice economy, no doubt. Yes, MS Swaminathan is the father of Green Revolution because he brought it to India. Reason for choosing the high-yielding variety of seeds. We will do the growth data when I am teaching you India after 91, Shiv Prasad. IADP and IAAP were experimental things, Shaista, where we tried experimenting with modern methods of technology to develop agricultural production. Demonstration effect means एक आदमी ने किया जिसे दूसरे देखकर सीख गए. Yes, he is the same MS Swaminathan who gave MSP proposal. People are not hungry in our country, Samiksha. It's a bad idea to say that. People are not hungry. Believe me, I'll make you believe it. Let me teach you agriculture. I will be teaching you backward and forward linkage in detail. For the time being, understand, when you sell your commodity to someone, it is forward linkage. And when you buy your commodity from your raw material from someone, it is backward linkage. All right? That is, subsistence nature of agriculture changed to commercial. Both. It was creating employment and reducing employment. Shubhra, I was answering your question. No, you don't need IADP and IAAP in detail, Divyanshi. UPSC will never ask you that. Thank you, Shubhi. हाँ, कोऑपरेटिव फार्मिंग और लैंड कंसोलिडेशन अलग बातें हैं. Because of lack of registration perv, the records become different. Voluntary surrender means that the farmer themselves are willing to give their land to somebody else. Bye bye, Anvesha. Thank you, Parmeet. Thank you, Shaista. Yes, we will be discussing investment in agriculture, Mahendra. Thank you, Ved Prakash. Thank you, Rishika. Thank you, Divyanshi. Yes, yes.
What's the net effect on employment? Like mechanization didn't decrease, but
Yeah.
we also see that it also
Net impact was negative, if you ask me. Yes, the unemployment rate increased rather than decreasing post-Green Revolution
employment rate decreased.
in agriculture.
And so also like you said that we have class on Saturday, like so
16th.
yeah, on 16th. So
Yes, yes.
like the next IES class we have full free for
The test, you can write the test on Sunday. That's allowed. I'll just take 1 second. Reduction was more, Shubhra. Linkage effect will differ in which industry you are talking about. Bhargavi, I was answering your question. Thank you, Bhavya. Thank you, Jasleen. Thank you, Himanshu. Thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you, all of you online. I'll see you tomorrow, 3 o'clock then.